Good evening, Rockville. Today is April 28th, 2025, and we're going to begin meeting 11-25. Please join me as you're able in the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Troop Lead 1450, Jonathan Cole.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We'll begin with our agenda review. Ms. Salvatore-Farrell, have there been any changes?
Madam Mayor and council members, earlier today we had a consent item that was removed because it was a duplicate. So that has been updated. So that is reflecting you had through J, it's only through I. So that was removed, and then we just updated in the last half an hour to include Q&A for our climate action. So that's also been added.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Mr. Mihalik. Our city manager, please proceed with the city manager's report.
Mayor Ashton, members of City Council, good evening. 2 items to report tonight. Mother Nature got the best of Skate Jam last Saturday, but they're not going to take away this Saturday. So we're just inviting everybody to come to the rescheduled Skate Jam this Saturday, 9 to 5 at the Rockville Skate Park. There's something for the whole family, of course. The focus is going to be on boarding, but there's yoga, there's competitions, there's face painting, there's food. Hopefully everybody can join us for a great event. And again, fingers crossed on the weather. And then I typically don't mention things that are on a consent agenda, Mayor, but I'm sure you'll be pleased to say we're really excited about the agreement between the city and CSX that will allow us to paint the bridge. That's really exciting. I know the community's been talking about that challenging bridge with all the graffiti for quite a long time, and we're just really pleased that we have a new partnership with CSX to get that work done, hopefully this fall. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to, on behalf of the council, say a huge thanks to the entire team who worked on the Taft Center opening. It's improving quality of work experience for our employees, but also fostering greater collaboration. So great work by the entire team. I just also wanted to note Rockville Science Day was great yesterday. If anyone is interested in doing the green permit, you have a few days left. There's a lot of opportunity to potentially help support our environment with EV solar, geothermal, heat pumps. There's a lot of things you can do fee-free. And lastly, I want to mention a lot of nonprofits are doing important work, and Governor Moore today visited one of them, MANA, which is serving many people in schools around the city. So I just wanted to acknowledge those efforts. Councilman Van Greg.
Just one other note, Mayor. In addition to the skate jam happening this weekend, just want to make sure everybody is aware of the Rockville Arts Festival that's happening this weekend throughout Rockville Town Center. It's a fabulous program that's put on every year with over 130 different vendors throughout Rockville Town Center. So it should be a wonderful event, and hopefully the weather holds up.
It will, for a skate jam and arts festival. And then also looking ahead, hometown holidays will be coming up, also in Town Center. You can learn more at Explore Rockville. All right, so we're excited to have some volunteers for boards and commissions, and we have appointments and reappointments, several nominations for the Community Policing Advisory Board, Education Commission, the Human Rights Commission, as well as the Senior Commission. So, Councilmember Valeri.
Yes, for the Community Policing Advisory Board, I move the appointment of Eddie Friedman to the Community Policing Advisory Board to serve an expiring term until December 1st, 2027.
Do you want to do both?
Do you want me to do
Okay,
both?
actually,
Okay, sorry.
okay.
I just realized they were written separately.
Mr. Dawson, can we do both together, or do you want us to do them separately? Okay, all right.
Thank you. And I move the appointment of Steve Bennett to the Community Policing Advisory Board to serve an expiring term until February 1st, 2026.
Thank you. Councilmember Jackson now seconds. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Excellent. All right. We now have the education. Dr. Miles, I know you serve as liaison.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the reappointments of Lisa K. Farhai and Michael Berman, both to be reappointed to serve a full 3-year term.
Thank you. And just to clarify, Ms. Lisa Cahias Farhai would be May 1, 2028, and Michael Berman, April 1, 2028. Do we have a second? Councilman Gregg seconds. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. All right, perfect. It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Next, we have the Human Rights Commission. Councilmember Shaw.
I move to appoint Dominic Russoli to the Human Rights Commission to serve a full 3-year term until April 1st, 2028.
Thank you. Councilmember Jackson seconds. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Excellent. Thank you. Retirement Board. Councilmember Jackson.
All right, thank you. I move the appointment of Mike Walsh to the Retirement Board to serve a full 3-year term until May 1st, 2028.
Councilmember Fulton seconds. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Excellent. Thank you. Now we have the Senior Citizens Commission.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Jackson, go ahead.
So I move the reappointment of Alan Kaplan to the Senior Citizens Commission to serve a full 3-year term until May 1st, 2028, and I move the reappointment of Richard Rosano to the Senior Citizens Commission to serve a full 3-year term until May 1st, 2028.
Thank you. Councilmember Shaw seconds. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. It is unanimous. Thank you very much to all of our volunteers. We have many of them throughout the city who help make us better. We appreciate your service. We'll now be moving on to community forum. All persons are to address the mayor and council. Please speak in a civil and courteous manner. Be respectful to your fellow audience members and our team. Each person will be allowed 3 minutes, and we ask that you stick to the 3 minutes allowed. There is a time clock in front of you. You will hear an audible beep at the end of your 3 minutes. Please also state your name and whether you live in the city of Rockville. We first have Margie Graff from the Rockville Chamber. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Good to see you all. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Margie Graff, the President and CEO of the Greater Rockville Chamber of Commerce. I'm here to advocate for prioritizing local businesses in the city's bidding process. As a proud supporter of the Buy Local movement, I believe it is vital for our city to lead by example. Local businesses are the backbone of our community, and by prioritizing their bids, we achieve several key objectives. 1, economic impact. Choosing local businesses ensures that more money stays within our community, circulating and reinventing in Rockville. This strengthens our local economy and creates a sustainable foundation for growth. Number 2, community knowledge. Local businesses have a unique understanding of our community's needs and values. They are not just vendors, but neighbors who genuinely care about Rockville's well-being. 3, diversity and inclusion. Women and minority-owned businesses, which are often local, may not always offer the lowest bids, but they bring in valuable contributions such as inclusivity and representation. By supporting them, we foster a city that values equality and diversity. And 4, long-term value versus short-term cost. While cost is an important factor, it should not be the sole determinant. Local businesses provide long-term value through reliability, accountability, and community engagement. I recommend adopting a procurement policy that incorporates a scoring system, weighting criteria like local presence, community involvement, and diversity alongside cost. This approach ensures that we make informed decisions benefiting the city holistically. By prioritizing local bids, we are investing in Rockville's future, supporting our residents, and cultivating a thriving community. I urge the council to make this a priority in all city contracts. Thank you for considering this critical issue. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for representing the local business community as it pertains to our workshop discussion. Thank you. All right. I do want to acknowledge there are several people who have written in testimony. Is there anyone who would like to speak here today? All right. A question from Ms. Sarah Taylor Farrell. Some of the written comments really would potentially pertain to the zoning ordinance rewrite, and I just wanted to make sure as we're getting those in that we're actually pushing those into a compendium of documents for that discussion as well. Okay.
We will make sure of that.
Hearing a yes, thank you. Okay. We'll now move on to our special presentation, the annual climate action plan. While they're getting set up, I just want to say thank you so much in advance. This body values sustainability and will continue to do so, and we're excited to learn more about the progress.
Great. While Amanda brings up the presentation, my name is Erica Shingera, Chief of Environmental Management. I wanted to welcome our newest member, Denzel John. He just started today, so this is his first day and night of work. He's the new Sustainability Program Manager. He has an energy engineering background, and he's worked for Johnson Controls for energy efficiency projects on commercial buildings, and most recently as a contractor for the FAA deploying EV charging infrastructure. So we're delighted that he's going to pull along our programs and some of our capital projects. So I'll turn it over to Amanda. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome, Amanda. Thank you, Erica. And welcome, Mr. Denzel John.
Thank you so much for having us to present to you the progress on our Climate Action Plan report. Let's see. Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. So there have been some challenges and there has been remarkable advances, and we have a lot to be proud of as a community. Overall, we're moving forward apace, and that's thanks to mayor and council actions and the actions of so many in the Rockville community, as well as the hard work of staff and the many partnerships that we're involved in. I have about 20 slides. I'll provide a brief background on the Climate Action Plan, summarize our action status, and provide our 2024 accomplishments highlights in each different category. And we'll describe next steps, and I'll hand it over to Erica at some point in the presentation. So this presentation just provides a very brief overview, and there's much more detail online in the dashboard and in the annual report. So a quick reminder, the Climate Action Plan was adopted in January of 2022. It contains 42 actions in 7 categories to equitably reduce greenhouse gas emissions and improve the community's resilience to climate impacts. It contains these 7 categories: energy efficiency, renewable energy, transportation, land management, materials and waste, resiliency, and public education and oversight. There are 16 actions focused on municipal operations and 26 focused on community actions. And we added in a bonus action, which was involving electrified landscape equipment. So we're actually monitoring 43 actions. So this pie chart summarizes the progress of those 43 actions in total. In the green area, those are the actions that are in progress. The phased actions it's about 9% of the actions are phased, which is another way of saying in progress, but it goes in phases. And then 21% are completed. And keep in mind that this plan goes to 2030. So we are, I think, making some progress here, but still lots more to do, of course. Now jumping into the highlights by section, starting with public engagement and oversight. So we have a wonderful environment and sustainability newsletter that comes out about quarterly or so, and we encourage everyone to subscribe. We were up to over 3,200 subscribers so far. We held 12 in-person and virtual outreach events in 2024 with over 1,000 impressions. We hosted 3 climate solutions education sessions with 56 participants, and the Environment Commission hosted outreach booths at 6 farmers market events. In terms of our dedication through the city's budget, around $4 million has been allocated to climate action related actions in the last few years in our capital and operating budget. And we were awarded $1.2 million in new grant awards last year. And over $1 million was invested in our community electric vehicle charging on city property through Pepco's, our partnership with Pepco. And the grants that were awarded are listed here. The next category I will speak to is energy efficiency. And of course, buildings and lighting are responsible for almost 60% of our community greenhouse gas emissions. So this is a really key area. And we're fortunate to be in Montgomery County and in Maryland, and they've both developed building energy performance standard regulations in the last year that apply to existing commercial buildings, like the larger commercial buildings. And 204 buildings have been reporting energy data through Montgomery County's benchmarking law. And you'll see in the graph here from 2018 to 2023, there was a 25% decrease in energy use in our commercial buildings. So we're well on our way. In terms of new construction, this mayor and council adopted last May some building code amendments that included several different energy provisions that were going above and beyond even the voluntary energy efficiency code. So we strengthened building efficiency, and we are, I believe, the first jurisdiction in the DC metro area to require electric vehicles charging stations to be installed in new construction for multifamily and commercial buildings. So we also are requiring solar-ready homes, and new buildings need to have an electrical outlet next to a gas appliance so that you could easily convert, as well as having storage space in a commercial building for an electric battery, and also some grid integration provisions for, I think it's thermostats and water heaters. In terms of the community energy efficiency programs, the community really stepped up last year. You'll see in the graph on the left below bottom here that last year over 1,800 homes participated in Pepco's home energy efficiency programs, including Home Performance with Energy Star and the Quick Home Energy Audit. And so those folks are probably already seeing some comfort and maybe reduce energy costs from that. We encourage people to check that out. Also, we've promoted the Montgomery County's home electrification and incentive program, and we had at least 3 Rockville homes participating in that, and that is available to convert gas appliances to electric, and there's still funding available for that. In terms of municipal energy efficiency, we have been systematically going through all Rockville facilities and doing lighting upgrades where we're moving from the CFLs to the much more efficient light emitting diodes, LED bulbs. And this also improves the lighting overall. And so we have completed the Senior Center, Twin Brook. We've completed several other, City Hall, Lincoln Park, and so forth. And next is going to be the Thomas Farm. So, and we've also, so another project that actually happened a little bit faster than we might have anticipated was the replacement of the city-owned streetlights. And out of the almost like 3,000 or so lights, streetlights, most of them are we expect to be replaced in the next couple of years. And you can see we've already replaced a lot of them. In terms of the land management category, the Rainscapes program is very popular, and it issued almost $50,000 in rebates for actions such as conservation landscaping, permeable paver retrofits, and tree planting in homes in Rockville. And then in terms of the city landscape management, the Recreation and Parks Department won a couple of grants to plant a couple thousand trees and shrubs at Redgate and other city properties. And so that's where you see on the below right graph, that long purple line is the benefit we see from that really great grant. And also we had 465 Weed Warrior volunteers remove invasive plants from parks, and we're very grateful for their assistance in bolstering our parks' resilience. In regards to sustainable transportation, you'll recall we adopted the electric vehicle readiness plan in March. It was drafted last year. And Rockville has a very high EV adoption rate, up to almost 6,000 registered electric vehicles and plug-in hybrids. And so we have a pretty high rate compared to the rest of the county, and the county has about 3 times as many electric vehicles registered there as the next highest county in the state. So we adopted this plan none too soon so we can streamline our permitting processes and make sure that we're able to support this increase. Municipal transportation, we have our electric EV charging infrastructure CIP, and we are in the process of designing several EV charging stations to support our fleet. And as I mentioned earlier, Pepco installed 17 ports at 5 different locations last year in a partnership with the city for community charging. The city fleet has now 21 battery electric, 1 plug-in hybrid, and 3 hybrid vehicles. And if you look at the chart below right, I know it's a little hard to see the numbers, but the top row is 2024 and the bottom row is 2021. So a big improvement, and we still have, many more vehicles to go, but this is a really strong start. In regards to community climate resilience, we have made a number of strides this year. The Flood Mitigation Assistance Program is available for homeowners, property owners to install flood mitigation projects such as French drains or sump pumps, and that provided $22,000 in rebates last year. And Erica's going to speak more to this expansion of this program. We also worked with the EPA to conduct outreach around the new floodplain maps that were issued last year. And a reminder that you don't have to be located in a floodplain to be susceptible to flooding, and sometimes good to consider flood insurance. Also, we worked with the county as they adopted and updated their hazard mitigation plan. We also updated our continuity of operations plan in Rockville. The flood resiliency master plan is now underway, and there is data collection happening for the flood model so that we can identify, where are the points where projects could be strategically placed to improve the city's flood resilience. In regards to materials and waste, we opened a 3rd compost drop-off station at Twin Brook Community Center in November 2024 and collected 114 tons of food waste for composting. And I used a calculator online to show that removes about 300 tons of carbon dioxide by composting. And we have about a 43% rate of diversion from landfill for waste overall with our number of programs. So for the next category I'm speaking to is renewable energy in the community. And the first thing I want to point out is the green fee waiver program for permits throughout the month of April. And also right now, one program is available, the Solar Switch Solar Co-op program. Last year we had a pretty high sign-up rate, 682 participants in that solar purchase. It's a group purchase program that provides people that join a discount and helps them walk through the solar process and the options available for them. So we encourage people to sign up this year, and to let you know that those prices that are quoted are secured through June 4th this year. There's not going to be any changes, any surprises, because that's already been set for this program. But we still have a ways to go in terms of reaching our solar goal, and love to have more participants in that. And we're launching a solar app pilot program to help increase the efficiency of our permitting process for solar. And I will hand it to Erica.
So another measure is renewable energy for our municipal facilities. The Department of Energy approved a grant to install rooftop solar at Lincoln Park Community Center. And this is an image of what that would look like on the gymnasium. The roof is being replaced, kind of like what you see at City Hall. Our rooftop is being replaced. So this sets us up for our next round to actually install solar. So we're excited that two of those key projects are being completed right now. MEI also, the Maryland Energy Administration also awarded a solar technical assistance grant to evaluate solar visibility for both rooftop and solar canopies over parking. And they're finishing up their study at City Hall, the Swim and Fitness Center, the Senior Center, the Recreation Services Building behind Glenview Mansion, and the F. Scott Fitzgerald Theater. We should get that report finalized at the end of this fiscal year, and this will turn that around. In addition to the solar canopies planned at 6 Taft and the Rockville Maintenance Facility, there is a delay because of MCPS contracting for solar canopies and some market conditions and some uncertainty with solar. So we're going to wrap all these projects together and plan to issue an RFP for all our solar projects, which is good because now we can bundle all these projects together. So there's kind of a strength in numbers and the number of projects and the sites. So we plan to do that within the next fiscal year for solar. The next slide, please. And rounding out, you may remember this slide from last year, our outside funding and partnerships. On the the clear side, the completed in 2024 is all the completed grants and rebates that we have worked on, whether it be through PEPCO or the Maryland Energy Efficient Program or the Chesapeake Bay Trust. We're thankful for our partners to help leverage their funding. And looking forward, our new partnerships are really going to focus on the Flood Resiliency Master Plan in the next fiscal year and several projects funded by the Maryland Energy Administration. Lots of lighting projects that we're excited to complete, and some more EV charging stations and solar projects. Also, we're working with Montgomery County and other partners to coordinate with Rockville Housing Enterprises and help them access funding to help other members in our community. And we're excited, either through EV charging or energy efficiency and other programs. We'll also be, we're working on our grants, but for projects that we might not have grants, we'll explore direct pay when eligible, and we're building on a model with the Chesapeake Bay Trust and the Montgomery Green Bank to leverage more programs for property owners for larger that need technical assistance. So there'll be things looking forward in the future that we'll be excited to work on. As far as next steps, for 2025 or FY 2026, you've already seen the budget process and seen some of the elements that will continue. Again, we'll be continuing our $300,000 for that supports our flood mitigation assistance, rainscapes, and the water quality grants that we provide for resiliency and planting. Continuing the compost program and opening up a 4th site. The location is to be determined. Continuing our facility energy audits. We're working on the Swim and Fitness Center. We know that City Hall, 6 Taft Court, and the Senior Center will all have to comply with the building energy performance standards. I'm excited about the $280,000 for the Green Space Management Plan to look at over 1,000 acres of our public parks and parkland and working on invasive species management and developing a management plan for that. And some of the other projects you'll see now that we've got some funding in place and designs, more EV charging stations for fleet. We'll have an electric senior center bus, and we're applying for grants for a second one. More LED streetlight conversions, LED lighting upgrades, and solar procurement. In terms of plans, we'll be implementing our EV readiness plan, and of course, we're always implementing our Vision Zero bikeway master plan and pedestrian master plan that offset some of those greenhouse gas emissions from transportation, which is so important. And we're starting our modeling for a flood resiliency master plan, and we'll be looking through the next year on the stakeholder engagement component. So we'll be excited about that. And other policies and code amendments that will be coming to the mayor and council in the future. Chapter 5, the green building regulations, is just one section of that. Community Planning and Development Services is working on that. We'll also be working on our floodplain ordinance. We will need to update to comply with FEMA requirements. Chapter 21, streets, rights of way, and public improvements will be updated. And improvements to Chapter 21.5 for forest and tree protection. And last but not least, zoning will be incorporated too. So there's lots to work on still, and these are all foundational. So last but not least, we wanted to thank everybody that has worked. We have lots of great partners, whether it be at the state, the county, nonprofits, or Metropolitan Council of Governments, and of course our Rockville Environmental Commission and all of our volunteers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the special presentation. I'd like to note that on the climate action page, you can see our dashboard under the progress section. And it's my understanding that added to that climate action and progress page will be our Q&As. Just a quick overview on what you might find there. So you'll see all the action items and their progress. There's some questions about that are responded to on what % of our budget is going towards climate action, how we're leveraging grants, updates on the solar app permit, also looking at the county electrification grants, just flagging Rockville, as you heard, got 3 grants, so more people please apply. And then there's also commentary about composting, 4th location, looking at a composting pilot and what the county is doing, support available for homeowner associations, and as well as affordable housing, climate justice, direct pay, the grant impacts from the federal government changes, as well as accelerating LED. So please go if you'd like to learn more. The Mayor and Council submitted those questions, and you can see the staff's detailed responses on those. Thank you so much for moving us forward. As I noted earlier, this council fully supports sustainability. Even no matter what happens at the national level, we know how important it is here in terms of reducing costs and supporting our environment, and we appreciate the staff. Again, welcome to our new team members.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. We'll now move on to our consent agenda. We have several items, but some exciting ones as well. I know our city manager previewed one of them. But consent agenda item A is about creating an agreement to support a more permanent streetery on Gibb Street in Rockville Town Center. Consent agenda item B is awarding or authorizing an award for the city manager to execute a rider agreement in terms of support for our parks and playgrounds so that we can continue to improve those around the city. Decommissioning the Hatter of Rockville, as there will be a new mural in Rockville Town Center. D, authorization for the city manager to release existing easements, and there's detail on where those are. E, approving the College Gardens Park mural design. F, authorizing the city manager to execute Mod 2 to support the natural resources no cost extension. I believe that's for the flood mitigation plan, if I have that right. Next is the CSX bridge, trying to help provide a welcoming entree into the city and cleaning up some of that graffiti. H, authorizing the city manager to amend the forest conservation easement and land records for Montgomery County for project plan PGT 2023-0015, as well as the I, approval of minutes. Colleagues, what say you? Does anyone want to pull any of these items? Okay, Councilmember Valeri.
Madam Mayor, I would like to pull item E, the approval of the College Gardens Park mural design.
Colleagues, anything else? Are you okay with that for discussion? All right, so let's proceed with approving, as said, A through D and F through I. Councilman Van Grack.
Madam Mayor, I move for approval consent agenda items A, B, C, D, F, G, H, I, as noted in the agenda as you described.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Fulton, seconds. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Thank you to staff. There's a lot of information in there, and we appreciate all the background and work. Councilman Valeri, please ask your questions.
Thank you. My questions to Mr. City Manager regarding the College Gardens Park mural design. First, I want to say thank you, as always, for including visuals, especially when we're talking about art. But in general, it was just great to kind of see the evolution of the mural, and I was really appreciative of it. I know that we also have another mural kind of coming online within the next month in Twinbrook. So I wanted to get a sense because I got a little bit of a flavor of it from the staff report, but I wanted to get a better sense on the outreach that was done to the within the community on this mural. I want to make sure that we're doing that to the best of our ability, and maybe there were where I read maybe that there were some gaps. Maybe I'm missing something. So I wanted to kind of get your sense on what the outreach looked like because we had heard the feedback. I think the previous time that this item came forward, and I think that that was our direction at the time was like, okay, we need to do a little bit more outreach, and just wanted to hear from you how that went, and is that part of the staff report?
Thank you, Councilmember. Yep, you're exactly right. On July 29th, 2024, Mayor and Council were presented with the mural design for the project that's on your agenda for tonight. At that time, Mayor and Council did not approve the design and asked for there to be some additional community engagement. So staff took that back and on February 19th held a community engagement session out in the community. Didn't have fantastic attendance, but we usually don't at those events. We had 7 people attend and provide a number of different comments. But the summary is really this, that while some new and potential themes were identified by the community, everyone in the group ended the meeting stating in one form or another that they liked the original design. And for that reason, Dahl, who's the artist, sought to honor their consensus by further developing this original concept without making heavy modification. I think emphasis on heavy. There were some additions. It was made larger, wrapped around, but by and large, it went back to the original design after additional community engagement. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very helpful. I think, and you know correctly, I think the challenge with outreach is that there's different levels. You have a ladder of engagement. Coming out physically to an event is a very high rung on the ladder of engagement. So perhaps going forward, we can look into online ways of gathering feedback. That way, you don't have the issue of just individuals that may have that time that night or day or whatever to get their feedback. I also noted that the flyers were put at the senior center and were in Rockville reports. And I think maybe we could, even broaden those, especially around the College Gardens community. I think there's other opportunities there. My second question is, because again, I was like, am I missing something here? Is the artist actively working with the community on the creation of the art? I know that that was an aspect that we heard in the Twinbrook neighborhood, in particular at the rec center. But seen as the College Gardens mural will be kind of in a recreation space, I was wondering if there was a plan to incorporate and include the community members in the creation, especially for children.
I'll have to circle back on that one. Yep.
Not a problem. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. With that, do we have a motion to approve agenda item 9E, College Gardens Park mural design? Councilmember Shaw.
So moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Councilmember Jackson seconds. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I know staff is working on a number of art projects across the city, and they're popping up beautifully. So thank you for that. I think it's making our city brighter and shows our commitment to the arts. Okay. We're now moving on to our section of the agenda that's focused on work sessions. 12A is about the Minority, Female, Disabled, and Veteran-Owned Program, Local Preference. Welcome, Jessica Lewis.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. I'm Jessica Lewis. I'm the Director of Procurement, and tonight I will be kicking off the work session for MFDV program and local preference procurement information. And with me, I also have my Assistant Director, Mr. Jonathan Pearson, joining me tonight. So thank you for having us. So just to provide a brief outline of tonight's discussion, we'll be requesting some feedback from the mayor and council regarding these programs. I'll cover the MFDV outreach program that the city currently has, some background, some criteria for establishing a formal program, disparity study, so background, key steps, resources needed, examples of subcontracting programs and its impacts, and points to consider when implementing a MFDV subcontracting program. Then I'll switch gears to local preference, where I'll give an overview of our local preference advantages and disadvantages, and as well as local vendor preference examples. Also environmental and social outcomes-based procurement, and we'll be also just requesting that feedback again at the end of the presentation. So the requested feedback the staff is seeking tonight is, one, does the mayor and council want to conduct a disparity study for the city of Rockville, or alternatively expand upon current city outreach practices? Two, does the mayor and council want to expand or maintain its local preference policies? Or three, does the mayor and council want to expand or maintain its environmental and social-based procurement practices? So just to give some background on our current MFDV outreach program, so on October 20th of 2014, the mayor and council unanimously approved the creation of an informal MFD outreach program. And so the goal of the program was to increase procurement opportunities for MFD businesses through education, communication, collaboration, so that MFDV-owned businesses may compete effectively in the city's bidding process. And in FY 2022, the MFDV outreach program was enhanced to include veteran-owned businesses. So to provide some information on what the procurement department currently does in terms of our informal outreach program, we host an annual Rockville Means Business event, and during this event, businesses can learn about doing business with the city, receive information and tips on city processes, and meet user department staff. We also collaborate with participating agencies and exhibit and participate as panelists. So we work closely with Montgomery County, the Hispanic Chamber, Maryland Washington Minority Companies Association, the Rockville Chamber, as outreach at these events. And during these events, we participate, like I said, as an exhibitor. We provide information on the procurement department, what we do, how we operate, provide information on upcoming procurement opportunities in the city, and we answer any questions from the business community. We also facilitate how to do business sessions, and we partner with the Maryland Women's Business Center. So we've done some quarterly training and quarterly how to do business sessions with them. And in June, I will be conducting a webinar in partnership with Ready and the Black Collective. So that will be forthcoming. We conduct one-on-one sessions with businesses. So at a lot of our outreach events, we receive requests from vendors who would like information or where they need to be walked through the city's procurement process. So during these sessions, we provide tips on doing business with the city. We discuss the city's processes. We provide additional information and resources to vendors that are interested in viewing our upcoming and current opportunities. And for example, we utilize eMaryland Marketplace, or EMMA, which is the state's e-procurement system. And so the majority of the jurisdictions also in Maryland also utilize this resource as well to advertise opportunities. So we will actually sit with the vendor, walk them through the website, show them how to get registered through EMMA, so that not only are they receiving notifications on opportunities from City of Rockville, but other jurisdictions in Maryland as well. And we utilize our partner resources to advertise our city's bid opportunities. So again, we work closely with READY, the Rockville Chamber of Commerce, and the Maryland Women's Business Center. Within the past year, we've added language to our solicitations, encouraging bidders to utilize MFDV subcontractors if possible. And during outreach events, we emphasize to MFDV vendors that for a lot of our projects, especially our larger projects, construction projects, we do hold pre-bid or pre-proposal conferences. And at these sessions, it gives the vendors an opportunity to partner with prime vendors if they're looking to serve as a subcontractor. We also post the attendance sheet for those sessions so that vendors looking for subcontracting opportunities will know who to contact and who they may want to work with. Within the past year, we've started tracking the spend of all MFDV awards and not just mayor and council awards. So previously, we were just tracking the mayor and council awards. Now we're looking at all awards, mayor and council awards, city manager awards, and so on. And then we also offer debriefs to unsuccessful bidders and offerers so that they have an understanding as to why they did not receive an award and recommendations for submitting future bids and proposals. So we will walk them through the process as it relates to our procurement and active procurement process that we're wrapping up. So as you can see, we do dedicate a significant amount of time and effort towards our current program, and we continue to build on this program. So criteria, I'm going to switch and start talking about a little about formal MFD programs and the criteria around this. So the approach begins with a disparity study, which serves as the foundation and continues to be a critical step throughout the life of any formal program. And so a disparity study evaluates the procurement and contracting practices of a government agency, particularly involving their use of minority and women-owned businesses. So usually formal programs do not include veteran-owned businesses as a category, but however, some programs may consider disabled veteran-owned businesses. So just some background on the disparity study and how it came to be. In 1989, there was a U.S. Supreme Court case, City of Richmond versus J.A. Croson Company, that prompted the need for disparity studies, and which is why jurisdictions go through this process of completing a disparity study before implementing any formal program. So the finding was that governments cannot apply a remedy to a harm they hadn't explicitly proved existed. So as a result, municipalities who choose to conduct a disparity study where disparities are found are obligated to establish a compelling interest to support the legal establishment of a minority and women-owned program that can be defended in the court if ever challenged. And so the study involves a full assessment of the contracting activity of the government and determines if there is any discrimination within the procurement process that excludes minority-owned or women-owned or disadvantaged businesses. So these steps here are conducted to help identify government contracting discrimination or passive discrimination due to a system of inequality. So the steps include review of the procurement regulations, policy, including applicable federal, state, local laws in the geographic regions the study covers, analysis of current contractors that receive awards and contractors available in the area, disparity analysis of how many minority and women-owned businesses receive awards, and anecdotal evidence including interviews with local businesses and regression analysis showing links, if any, between discrimination and contracting opportunities. And then the study normally follows up with legal and programmatic recommendations, so suggestions for implementing or revisions to any certain programs or policies. So if the city were to conduct a disparity study, this just gives an overview of some of the resources that were needed. So there's an initial cost, which includes the cost of the study as well as personnel support to assist the consultant. So once a program is implemented, the best practice is to conduct the study every 5 years. So periodic costs may be less than the initial cost. Annual ongoing costs will require at least one full-time position to manage the program, and this includes tasks such as outreach, compliance, and reporting. And the estimated costs provided, these costs here were obtained in FY23, so they may be slightly different than what you see here. If a disparity study exists, the city must implement a remedial measure to address the disparities. It's not really a matter of thinking about it or, let's decide if we're going to do it. At that point, once there's been a disparity that has been identified, we're obligated to move forward and establish a program that's going to correct these disparities. In doing that, there may be a category-based subcontracting program may need to be implemented. So the way the category-based works is, for example, construction services. You may have 20% across the board for construction, and the city will require prime contractors to just identify a certain percentage of subcontractors that will participate in that category. Then you have project-based goals. So you're pretty much looking at project to project. So for example, if we're doing a building renovation project, the city would say, okay, just based on the availability of possible subcontractors, we're going to assign 10%, and we're expecting that prime contractor to do at least 10% of subcontracting work for that project. So this is an example of a subcontracting program and its impacts. And like I said, for example, for construction, if we have a 20% citywide goal, these are some of the responsibilities that this program would include. So one of the responsibilities of the city is ensuring that each solicitation includes the subcontracting plan that would be required by the prime contractor to complete. So at that time, the prime contractor would be responsible for identifying a certified minority or woman-owned subcontractor, and certification requirements and agencies could vary. We would expect them to complete the plan, indicating the percentage of contract spend that will go to the subcontractor, and submitting periodic reports to the city detailing payments that have been made to the subcontractor. So that's part of the compliance. We're requiring, if the vendor is saying we're going to do 10% for this construction project, then we're going to request them to submit documentation to prove that and the payments that they're making to that subcontractor. Once the city receives the bid response from the subcontracting plan, the proposed subcontractor would need to be verified by the city to ensure that they are certified with the certifying agency. So I know some of the certifying agencies currently in Maryland. I know MDOT certifies, and I believe Baltimore certifies as well. So the city would be responsible for tracking and managing compliance during the project, and this includes, like I said, review of payments submitted by the prime contractor. The city would also be required to manage any disputes that may arise between the prime and subcontractor during the project, as well as reporting, training, and outreach. So some points to consider if an MFDV subcontracting program is required. Opportunities would be supporting economic development and minority and women-owned and disadvantaged businesses, new perspectives of innovative products and strategies, and demonstrating the city's commitment to supplier diversity. But with the opportunities, there may also be some challenges, so need for additional time, funding, and resources to not only implement the program, but to maintain the program, risk of protests and disputes between primes and subcontractors, increased effort, time, and resources required may discourage a prime contractor from participating in the bidding process, and then also making sure that we maintain consistency with monitoring efforts to make sure the goals are achieved. So now I'll be transitioning to the local vendor preference information portion of this presentation. So just to give an overview of local vendor preference, the vendor local preference is a policy or ordinance enacted by a legislative body that provides bidding preference to a defined group, businesses within the city limits. Typically, government entities utilize a percentage markup that is applied to non-preferential bidders or markup for preferential bidders. And currently, our city code provides preference to local businesses when there is a tie low bid between a local and a non-local business. So some of the advantages and disadvantages of a local vendor preference program. So advantages include creating jobs and representing commitment to the local businesses, encourage businesses to stay or relocate in the city. Some of the disadvantages are governments may end up paying more while decreasing competition. Some governments, some governments have actually deemed this unconstitutional because it conflicts with fair and open competition, which is a key principle of public procurement. So there have been a few white papers that have been released from professional procurement organizations. So NIGP, the National Institute for Government Procurement, which we are a member, as well as NASPO, who do not support or are not in support of local preference programs. There's also risk of reciprocal actions by jurisdictions. So if the city of Rockville implements a 5% preference, a Rockville vendor could go to another jurisdiction who does not have a local preference program, and that other jurisdiction can implement the 5% to their bid just because City of Rockville does it. So that in some forms can be kind of retaliatory. Administration of a program can become cumbersome and will require increased oversight and consistency. So for example, including or establishing boundaries, so determining residency of the local vendor, and then making sure that the preference is actually being applied. So here is just a scenario of a local vendor preference, an example of a 5%. So we have the three vendors here from Gaithersburg, Hagerstown, and Rockville. So here are their original prices. And then as you see here from the 5% preference markup, so we would actually mark up the non-local bidders, leaving the Rockville vendor at their original bid. And then for adjusted bid or for evaluation purposes, this would be the amount that we would utilize to determine, if we should apply the preference. So in this case, the Rockville vendor does win, but we do end up paying more than that Gaithersburg vendor. So following up, understanding that environmental and social outcomes may intersect, this slide just outlines some of the current programs that we use to achieve our goals in terms of this criteria. So in terms of sourcing, we do utilize the email and marketplace. We utilize the vendor connection portal, the county's vendor registration system, and contracting resources with sustainable products and initiatives. So like Office Depot, Granger, and Ferguson, they do have green initiatives that we take advantage of and that we utilize. And then for solicitation development assistance, we currently work with our departments, especially, and I know there was a presentation just previously about the climate action plan and goals that we have as a city. So we do work with the departments, and we're currently having those discussions about what we can do in terms of sustainable procurement. So looking at our specifications, looking at our requirements, looking at our terms and conditions, and assisting with development of sustainable procurement processes, including metrics and key performance indicators. So that concludes the presentation. So I'll just take us back to our staff's requested feedback. Number one, does the mayor and council want to conduct a disparity study for the city of Rockville, or alternatively expand upon current city outreach practices? Does the mayor and council want to expand or maintain its local preference policies? And does the mayor and council want to expand or maintain its environmental and social-based procurement practices? So thank you.
Thank you. I know this is a very data-driven council, so I really appreciate the presentation and the questions you've asked us. We'll go through each. Just in general, have you prepared data on how we are doing in terms of MFTV, for example? I have taken some notes and gone through all the previous procurement reports, but I think it's important to say, like, what problem are we solving? Is the outreach achieving the affected goals, and are we okay? And then on the locality preference, how is what we have working? Is it working? So if you could just share some data with us on how you think we are doing so thus far. If you need me to pull numbers, I did go around and mark them down, but I just wanted to give you an opportunity to share some data with us first.
Okay, so like in FY22, we did about 7%. In FY23, we did 16%, but I just want to note that this was only for mayor and council awards. So with the mayor and council awards, all awards, we are looking at 21%. And that's that's all awards, solicitations, riders, contracts, everything that's included in that number.
How much does the city spend in procurement, generally speaking, in total? Not just thinking about mayor and council awards.
So in FY24, we had a spend of procurement contract related spend of about 80 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for example, in 2024, it was 24%, but that really only represents 3.4 million
Yes.
total. Okay.
Yeah.
And I will just note that I have seen some progress, as you noted, but we tend to stay in the worst year was 2022. I'm not sure what happened there, but that was at 7%, a total of 1 million. I will say previously we were in the 2 to 4 million range. So we've kind of gone back to where we were in some sense in terms of the total. But from 2022, we were at 7%, 2023, 16%, and 2024, 24%. But as you said, that's not the total procurement. Is it possible for us to get data on total procurement percentage? Because I think it kind of skews only the mayor and council specific procurement, just so we can have both of those numbers. And I don't expect you to have that now, but I think it's important for us to, as we're looking at this challenge, and what is the scope of the problem? What are we trying to achieve? It's helpful to have that data.
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So you said total of procurement?
Is there a way to do that, or is that impossible? I'm not saying excluding P cards, I would say, because that's probably too hard to do.
Okay. That's what we're providing. Yeah, I mean, we're providing that now.
Okay. Yeah. So 80 million, out of 80 million, 3.4 is going. So what about the contracts that we're writing from other agencies? Are we tracking the MFTV there? We are. Okay. And when you do the annual procurement report, I know 2024 is not yet posted. It will be. It only has 1 year. Since this is something that we might want to be tracking, is it possible, and some of the metrics you include the multi-year, just to see, not look at 1 year in isolation, but be able to look, comparatively speaking, how are we doing over the past few years? Is it possible to have a chart that tracks multi-year so that we and future mayor and councils can see, are we on the downward trajectory, upward trajectory?
Yes.
Okay. And then in terms of locality preference, is that program working? I know that started, as you just say, 2012.
So right now, it's just for, our code only allows us to use preference in the event of a tie bid. So if we receive a tie bid from a local bidder and then a non-local bidder, we would give preference to the local bidder.
And have we exercised that opportunity, and has it come up? Has it worked, is the question.
We have, but it doesn't happen often.
How rare is that?
In the 10 years I've been here, it's probably maybe once or twice. Yeah, it's infrequent.
And even if it doesn't happen, is it possible to at least note that in the procurement report? Because there's a policy, and it may or may not be working, but at least it signals us to look at it.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, I will just also note that in doing my homework for this, I was looking at other jurisdictions. I think, anytime we look at a new policy, it's helpful to look at other jurisdictions. I happen to review and talk to the head of procurement at Montgomery County. So I will be sharing some of my thoughts and ideas that I've discussed from that perspective. But I just wanted to say, are there any, from my colleagues, any key lessons learned or thoughts that you have from other jurisdictions on these topics?
Just in my talks with my colleagues, it seems to be this, I'm receiving the same theme, is that they've implemented these programs and they're not working as they've intended them to work. And I think because a lot of what they may bid out, the local vendors may not do. They may not provide that particular good or service. So I know some, localities, they've, closed their programs out. They, just do because it's infrequent. It happens infrequently. It may have resulted in a higher cost. So it's some things that I think have concerned some other jurisdictions. I know here, at the city, we look at any opportunity that we can to use local vendors. So, if we're doing an event and we need catering or food, I know we use some local vendors for our camps. So we do look for opportunities to provide to local vendors. But yeah, across the board, talking to colleagues, it doesn't happen too often. If there is a local situation, it's very infrequent.
Okay, thank you. I will just note, because I was trying to gauge, and I went to some municipal association meetings and others, and talking to the county, of the programs, what is producing the best results. And just to share with my colleagues what I have, and this is just today, so I was trying to consolidate and do my own interviews, that the locality preference has the capacity to support both objectives, right? Supporting the local economy. And in particularly in Montgomery County, what I was learning from the county's experience, and they actually have their disparity report posted online and their reports posted online, that because Montgomery County is so diverse, that it's also increasing the number of diverse businesses that are in the procurement system. I think about 33% are local, and they're seeing high diversity in those numbers. So I just wanted to, at least as we go into the conversation, say that seems to be an area that we could achieve both objectives. Now, they have different approaches, which I'll pause and have my colleagues ask questions, but they have different approaches to the local that we might want to explore. And I think in general, maybe doing a little bit more on like what are the best practices, what works in other places, to see how we can leverage other people's experiences and not do the things that are not working. Councilman Van Grack.
Thank you. To expand on some of those comments, and first of all, thank you for putting this together, because I think it's an important area, and the outreach that you guys are doing is fantastic. And to the extent that we can expand those, I think that's definitely something we should do. But I want to expand a little bit to what the mayor was saying and ask some questions with regard to kind of both the other jurisdictions and also what we're doing, because you laid out in your presentation, and I understand that might, as you said, might even be low, the amount of money that it would cost the city, not just with the disparity study, but also from an annual basis, both with staff and a study, and depending on what the results would be. To me, it looks like we could be spending between $300,000 to $400,000 per year while we're going through this process, that we would be beholden to it. Now, I noticed that other jurisdictions, such as the state of Maryland and the county, have a much larger budget. Are there other municipalities that have a similar budget to us, which is significantly less than a Maryland county budget or a state budget, that are incurring somewhere in the neighborhood of $500,000 a year for these types of studies and evaluations and having a staff person?
I know one other jurisdiction that I do know of, they spent, and they're probably similar in size, the city of Rockville, they spent about 300,000. Yeah.
Sorry, I did ask questions and they spent about 300,000. I think it was 250 or something like that. Yeah. Was that Frederick, I think? I can't remember.
City of Frederick.
Yes,
I
yep.
believe,
So are we aware of any other jurisdiction, even outside of, Maryland municipalities that are spending that amount of money per year through such studies?
Outside of Maryland, I can try to get some additional information on that, but just in Maryland and just colleagues that I've talked to, I think the lowest has been like about 300,000.
Well, I guess not just the lowest, but
Yeah.
you're only aware of one municipality that's undergone that expense in a similar size.
Yes.
Okay. And then the other question I had is with regard to the local, the local preference policies. With regard to and I know you put forward the idea of 5%, are there any other municipalities, as opposed to counties, any other municipalities similar to the size of Rockville that's implementing a similar 5% or even anywhere between 1 to 5% or even more than that on their local preferences?
I have seen where some may do 2%.
Okay.
2%, yeah. Normally I would see 5%, but I've seen 2%, 5%. That's really what I've seen.
And is it common for the municipalities to do such a local preference, or abnormal, or somewhere in the middle?
It's not common, no.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Valeri.
To piggyback a little bit, in talking about the city of Frederick, they actually are one of the municipalities statewide that spend the most on economic development as well. So I think that also kind of says something to where their commitment is to building up the local economy and focusing on that. So I just want to give them a shout out. Not that anyone in Frederick is watching us right now, but
You never know.
you never know. You never know. But I think there is a direct connection to it, and I think that all throughout this presentation, thinking about this subject, that's been something that's been in the back of my mind is that, depending on how our very hyper local economy is looking like as we go into these uncertain times, I think that that is something that is really weighing heavily on me as far as, do we need to expand or maintain these sort of things. So I'm still kind of noodling on that a little bit. I have one question and one comment. My question was, because I see the chair here in the audience this evening, did the Financial Advisory Board weigh in on the disparity study? Do we know?
No.
Okay. Okay. And apologies if.
Can I just add, I did call the chair to say we were having this item, but they haven't reviewed it as a body.
As a body, that's what I was curious about. Okay. That's fine. I was just thinking more because visuals are helpful. I'm a visual learner. The comment more so is that even as recently as this last weekend, when thinking through the social-based procurement, I heard from community residents, several different community residents, that asked me specifically whether or not the city was investing in or utilizing the services of companies that have been connected to the federal workforce reductions. And I think to put forward to my colleagues, if there is an expansion of the social-based procurement practices, knowing what the reductions have done and are doing specifically to our city, that would be a consideration that I would like to see expanded. So that is all for me for right now.
Thank you. Great points by both my colleagues. Councilmember Shaw.
I want to echo my colleagues and thank you for this really great presentation. Just wanting to piggyback on the data points. Do you, and you don't have to share this now, but I would like to see it. I know you shared the overall percentage, but could I see that data disaggregated based on minority, female, disabled, veteran businesses?
So we don't categorize it that way. Yeah.
So there's no way to see.
Yeah, get that sub information.
Can I just clarify and add to my colleague? So we don't do it yet. That's an ask that we have.
Because I think it would be good to see if there are any disparities among that group, and so that's a data point I would like to see as we move forward. My second question is, you talked about one of the challenges is the risk of protest and dispute between the prime and subcontractors under a formal program. Can you just share a little bit more details around that?
So for example, what I've seen in previous positions is you may have a prime who has said, okay, I'm going to use X subcontractor for, whatever service as it pertains to this contract. And they end up either not using them or they use them and they're not paying them. Yeah. Or they're not, the subcontractor's not getting their payments timely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then my other question was, so there's this question to the body around a disparity study or expanding our outreach. Can you provide more detail in terms of what you're envisioning when you say expanding our outreach practices, especially considering that Montgomery County, as you mentioned, Montgomery County just created a disparity study last year. I think it was less than a year ago, that could help inform our outreach practices. But could you share a little bit more?
So some of the things that we're working on, and it's actually in our strategic plan. So I know one of the initiatives that we have is we want to start at these events, start surveying some small or MFDV vendors just to get an understanding, okay, what challenges are you having doing business with the city of Rockville? What would you like to see the city of Rockville do in terms of that, that space or having a formal program? So that is one of the outreach initiatives that we are looking at expanding upon, is getting more feedback from the business community.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add just one more, just a comment that I did see that Montgomery County, at least years ago, they did have a minority-owned business task force to help kind of inform some of the practices. And this could be something that the city could think about.
Thank you, Councilmember Shaw. I did want to note when we, and Dr. Miles will recall this, when we saw the numbers in 2022, we did ask for more outreach and more diverse outreach in general. And I know that you have been coordinating with the different chambers of commerce, the Asian Chamber of Commerce, the Hispanic Latino Chamber, and the Black Chamber of Commerce. So I know that is now happening more regularly. So I appreciate the work that you were doing there. I have a question on this comment on outreach, because is there a way for people to sign up? Because when you go to our page, you can look at open bids. Can they sign up and get alerts when a new one is posted?
Through our e-sourcing system, yes, they can.
When people come to our outreach events, do they sign up for our e-sourcing system, or is that a way that we could help them on that follow through?
So they would have to sign up. They can sign up anytime. So they can come to events. They can sign up through the e-sourcing. But typically, we find that most vendors only sign up when they're bidding, because you do have to sign up to bid. But we do encourage them to, if they can, sign up. And in addition to our e-sourcing system, also sign up through email and marketplace. Because if they're signed up through email and marketplace, our bids go out through there, they're notified there, and then they'll also be notified of other jurisdictions' bids as well.
Is there a cost to get those notifications from those other sources?
No.
Okay, so that's good. So they can at least get a push communication.
Yep.
That's great. I want to go back to the data on how we are doing now. So can you tell me about the purchase? So I was looking at our numbers in terms of the 2024 report. And it looks like the majority of our spend is coming through purchase orders and master agreements. when you do the math of what is spent through the purchase orders and master agreements, it is not what is going to MFTV organizations is not 20-something%, because that adds up to about $74 million. So what is the number that you're using to help calculate, what are the numbers you're using to help calculate the percentage of 20+%?
So then the number of MFDV vendors, and then of that percentage of MFDV vendors is the 3 million.
But 3 million, so 3 million to 74 million, that's not 20-something%.
So this is it's not, so the master agreements and purchase orders, it's everything. It's not just rider contracts, it's not solicitations. Though that spend is everything, the POs and the master agreement.
Right, it doesn't include GAX payments and doesn't include P-card payments. But I think there may be greater clarity, because I want to make sure we're using the largest number possible, and what percentage of those are going to MFDVs, and then what percentage of those are going to local. Those, those are data points that I think will be very helpful for us to know, and to also have a dedicated page on the local. I have heard from a number of businesses that are like, we're here, we chose to be in Rockville, and we heard from the chamber today on how important that is. So I am interested in learning more about our local process and how we can improve that and leverage the best practices from other entities. We have the county and other local jurisdictions, maybe in Frederick as well. So I did want to also just ask a few questions about how we contract. So a large portion of our contracts go through riding contracts, right? We do that a lot.
Yes.
Right. So do you happen to know if we're seeing a lot of MFDV and local companies come through those contracts that we're writing? Or is it harder to be one of those two categories?
I do see for rider contracts, like if it's construction or construction-related services, I do see a heavy MFDV participation there when writing contracts. But it can vary. It just really depends on the good or the service that we're requesting and the contract that we're writing.
Okay. And then when we're calculating the MFDV and local, do we look at subcontractors, or you're only looking at the prime number?
We're just looking at the prime.
So I'm wondering, there may be better numbers than we see, but is there a possibility to ask the question from the contractors as we're surveying them as well, to understand if they're using local companies? Because we put in there in the update, I think it was 2 years ago, or we are trying to encourage local subcontracting, but we're not measuring that, so we don't have a sense of whether that encourages working. Is it possible, as you're doing your data and research, to look at that?
I mean, it's possible.
Do you need anything? Do you need us to ask you, formally direct you to do that? Okay. I just want to make sure we're clear. All right. That is super helpful. The other question I have is about living wage. So when we do contract out with other organizations that may not be in Montgomery County and are not required to have the same level of payments to their employees, it's part of our values that we believe in a living wage. Do our contract vendors also have to provide that minimum wage that we use here?
So we currently don't have a living wage in our contracts.
Right. Well, I just at least the minimum wage. Do we have? Are they required to use Montgomery County's minimum wage?
That's not. I mean, I can go back and see if I can get more information on that, but no, my understanding is that we don't have any particular stipulation in our contracts that require that.
So it's something I'm interested in learning more about, and I'd love to hear what my colleagues think about this. If people are bidding competitively, and people choose to do business in Rockville, or Montgomery County, and they're paying the minimum wage, which is higher than maybe other parts of Maryland, other parts of the country, then their bids will always be harder to win. It'll be harder for them to win compared to other places. So I just wanted to ask that question. Councilman Van Grack and Councilmember Shaw? Perfect. All right, go to him next.
As I understand, I think they are required to pay the minimum wage if they're in Montgomery County, and I just wanted to note that there is a large difference between minimum and living wage. And I think the living wage is around like close to $29 an hour or so. But I just wanted to make a note that there is quite a difference between the minimum and living wage, and I believe that there should actually be since we're on that topic, I believe that there should be a living wage instead of a minimum wage.
The data I got from the county today is their living wage is $18.15, which is higher than the minimum wage, but it's close. This is what I heard today. But.
So this is just a living wage. The 29 is a living wage if you have a family. So,
right. I'm just telling you what the county defines as in their contracts
living
living wage.
On an individual.
Yeah. Councilmember Miles.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to echo my thanks to staff and procurement and my colleagues for having this discussion. As the mayor said, it's a discussion a long time in the making. And without further ado, I'll just jump in. I will restate a portion of the answer to a question I posed last week regarding whether or not we needed a disparity study. Stated otherwise, if we identified that there's a problem, why do we need to go through this, non-trivial financial expense of, $300,000? And the answer in part, and Ms. Lewis can correct me if I'm wrong, is essentially it, paraphrasing, helps ensure that whatever program is established meets legal muster, such that, if we do decide to go forward with this, that we are on some established legal footing. So that's I just wanted to put that out there. We're not wanting to spend money just to spend it, but it is out of abundance of caution and to get data that, as I have been told by staff, we just don't have the staff, the person power in place to do. That's point number one. The question, or one of the other points I was going to make is that, if there are other jurisdictions in Maryland that participate in a local preference, and obviously the answer is yes, including Baltimore City. I do respect and take the comments and feedback of the procurement director about, the intermittent success of such programs in other jurisdictions. And I'll leave it at that. The question I have is, if we as a body agree, we haven't made that determination yet, but if we do agree to do a disparity study, to what extent could we expand it to include environmental criteria? Again, the answer I got from staff is that this would not necessarily include a study about whether or not we're meeting any of our climate goals, though I do understand and did glean from both the presentation and the reading that there are certain practices that are in place currently. I think Ms. Lewis said, certain procurement providers are meeting some sort of environmental standard, including Granger, Alton, Stebo, and Ferguson. But I guess the question is, could it be expanded to include environmental criteria? And if so, how much would that cost? I'll stop and see if she's able to answer that question. I apologize, I'll put you on the spot. Then I have a follow-up question for you.
Thank you, Dr. Miles. Ms. Lewis. I'm sorry. So the question is, can the disparity study, a version of the disparity study, or the place that we contract, also look at the environmental practices? So giving a preference for people who align with our proposed environmental values. Is that right, Dr. Miles?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So, Mayor, let me take that one. The disparity study really doesn't focus in at all on environmental issues at all, so they're actually very different things. But if the council wants us to lean into a procurement practice that gives extra weight, extra credence, extra points to corporations, businesses, vendors that subscribe to certain environmental and social-based values, we can do that. But a disparity study, I'm not aware of, Jessica's not aware of it, none of us are aware of a disparity study that does that analysis.
Do you have any jurisdictions who have an ESG preference in their procurement? Is there any example? Are we on any legal footing to follow some certain precedents?
So currently in our code, we do have language about, doing sustainable procurement and sustainable procurement initiatives. But yes, there are other jurisdictions that do have, policies around this, yes.
Dr. Miles, do you have another question?
Yes, thanks for that follow-up and clarification. The other one is to what extent, this is a point brought up by our colleague. I wasn't familiar with the county participate or having done a disparity study. If, as in the practice in some of our contracts, how we serve or ride on other contracts that are already existing, are we able to do something similar with the county who reportedly has conducted a disparity study?
Dr. Miles, I did try that approach and I was told no. Mr. Mihalik, go ahead.
So I think Councilmember Shaw, Mayor, and Dr. Miles all are onto something, which I think is a really good idea. You've heard me talk about it before. The county and the city are virtually in the same market, right? So if the question is, can we learn about disparities in our region from a county disparity study, we absolutely can. I think it's very informative, right? Could it lead to us to change our practices? Yes, it could. But if we're going to require MFAD practices within our procurement, then we have to do our own disparity study. There's a unique
That's
difference
exactly
there.
what I heard as well. And I've asked a number of lawyers, including our own. So, yeah, but I do take your point on we should learn and talk. And I don't know if the area procurement leads talk to each other, but it seems like, that's great. I'm glad that you do. Dr. Miles, did you have any follow-up questions? I know Councilman Fulton also has questions.
Yeah, just one follow-up. Thank y'all for your patience. In the example cited in the presentation with regard to working with vendors who have demonstrated some sort of environmental or meeting some sort of environmental criteria, how do we determine what those criteria are, or are we kind of taking them at their word? This is not to put y'all on the spot, but I'm just curious.
So right now we are looking at ways to establish criteria. So we don't have the criteria yet, but that is something that we're looking at incorporating possibly into our solicitations and our contracts.
And I apologize, I did say it would be my last one. Is there any, as the mayor would say, any direction you need from this body to help move that process along about clarifying those criteria, be it, a request for staffing or whatever direction we could, share with city manager or your team?
I think that's one of the questions. Dr. Miles is question number 3.
So I will just note, it's hard to say that, and I will come back to it, but because we don't have data on how it's working. So I want to go to Councilmember Fulton, if Dr. Miles, you're done, but I do think we need to understand better what's working and what's not. Councilmember Fulton.
Thank you. That was in some ways a good segue to what I was going to say. I'm going to have a question, but I just want to the mayor's point at the outset, it's, knowing what is the problem we're trying to solve, right? And I think it's important to get clear on that for me to know what my feedback is going to be. And it sounds like to me, there are 3 proposals out there, one not stated, but the sort of green proposal. For the MFDV, the point of the program is to rectify harm. That's why you need the disparity study, right? There needs to be a harm that you are rectifying legally. So one, we would need to know if there is a harm. And I think we've talked about ways to get to that. Legally, you need the disparity study. For the second possible program, the local program, the goal or the problem, I gather, is promoting the local economy and our local residents. That's a policy goal. It's not a harm that exists. The same is true for sort of the green or environmental goals. But to me, though, that one, if you want a contractor who has certain like green standards, can't we just put that in the procurement action? Like, do you need a separate program, or you just put it in the procurement action, right?
Yes, and we're researching best practices on that currently. Yeah.
So that's not like a preference, it's a factor in the thing. So then it gets back to what the mayor was just saying is, if those are the three problems or the goals, I would need to know whether these proposals are the best solutions. And we don't have anything in front of us that tells me that I want to spend $300,000 and then more in perpetuity, because I don't know that it's going to solve the problem for the MFD. I will just also share that for the local preference, I share the concern about fair and open competition. Like, yes, we have a goal. Yes, we should be providing jobs and opportunities for our own residents and the businesses that are here. We also have an obligation to our residents here to like be fiscally responsible. And so I struggle with that one as well. So.
Can I add some, thank you. I appreciate the thoughtfulness of all of my colleagues. I'm wondering if what is put here as an example as a local approach needs to be. I think you don't have to necessarily allow a percent over, right? That's not the way we have to go. We don't have to spend 10% more, 5% more. We could look at an approach that's slightly different. I think that we could learn from some of our neighbors as to how they're approaching the local program. And to give credit to Mr. Ariashetti, they have been working and fine-tuning, looking at the disparities, looking at local economy. As I said, they got 33% local, and that is something they've worked very hard at, and there are things they've had to do to adjust. There are three things that stood out to me in terms of what the county is doing, and I think for me, I think I want to learn more and see if we can get more detail so that all of my colleagues have the same level of information. But one thing they do is a local small business reserve. So any contract under 100,000, and we can determine what the number is, they advertise it locally for X days, right? They go out first to locals. Doesn't mean that others can't apply, but after 3 days, then it goes broader. So they're not necessarily doing a points difference, but they are saying we're going to give our local people a little more time. So that's one approach that they take. The second is they have a local preference points program. So local businesses get 10% points in terms of the grading, not necessarily 10% higher. And so that allows them to be fiscally responsible, but also, look at supporting the local economy. And I think the comments the comments on, is it fair that if someone lives outside of Maryland or they're bidding on something, they don't pay a minimum wage that is anywhere close to what we have, and our local companies are constantly disadvantaged because we believe and support a minimum wage in Montgomery County and the state of Maryland. I don't think it's fair to disadvantage our local businesses. That's just me personally. So I think that I really appreciate those two approaches in looking at that. The other piece is contracts over $10 million. And again, we don't have to set a line exactly, but they will require 10% to work with a local vendor. So a prime could still be out, but a local vendor could be included as subcontracting. So I wanted to flag that these are some things that appear to be working, and it'll be very helpful for all of us to get information on what is working. I also don't have a sense of how many local vendors are we using now. Mm-hmm. So I think getting a baseline would be helpful as well, so we can see, is it a problem? And how, and if it is, then that'll give us a baseline to see how we're improving over time. Mm-hmm. I wanted to see if any colleagues have any comments on that. Councilman Valeri.
I agree with a lot of what you said. The other thing that, while you're speaking, you kind of jogged my memory a little bit is, how we're defining local as well. I would be curious to know how many people or entities have won contracts that are outside the state versus even just staying within the state of Maryland, because I think frankly, from the state and the county and on the city levels, we are going to have some unique economic challenges based on our principles that other states may not have. So we could see, in theory, right, a shifting, not only minimum wage law, but other living our values through policy that other states will not enact that could, going forward, give even more of a greater advantage to out of state entities. So I would be curious to know, even just like looking at it from that perspective of both the prime and the subcontractors, how many, what are the historical trends on, in state versus out of state, in the county versus out of the county. You know what I mean? Like a local is such a catch-all that I would want to kind of, I'd like to see dig a little deeper into that, because I think, again, going to like what is the problem, and defining the problem, and we can share with you what our goals are, and how we want to be fiduciarily responsible, as well as living our values through how we're going to utilize taxpayer funds. So that's just kind of my thoughts.
Councilman Van Grack.
I'm just going to be a brief supporting and echoing some of my colleagues' comments. I don't know that I'm prepared at this point with any information to support a disparity study going forward. I think there is a question of whether there's a need for that particular expenditure, which is a lot, but to the extent there's either more data or information to guide us about potentially expanding the city's outreach policies that currently exist with regard to disparity, whether there's a way to do the local preference. I think if we're going to do it, I think I'd err on the less is more aspect, where we're talking about whether there's some way to do points other than just do money, or if we're actually going to do a money percentage. I don't think there'd be anything above maybe a 1% advantage, kind of like a little bit more than a tie, because we want to encourage, but by the same vein, we got to be fiscally responsible to all our residents, just as Councilmember Fulton said. And with regard to the environmental and social-based procurement practices, I think it's definitely something that we need to look at, but to the extent that can be part of the procurement process, I think that's a way we can potentially do it. But just like some of my colleagues said, I think there might even be some more information as to what actual practices we would do.
I will just note, when we changed the encouraging local encouraging subcontractors for MFTV, that is something we just directed, and it was put into the procurement process. So to the comment that my colleagues have made, we have precedents for doing that, and it's something that we could do going forward. Councilmember Jackson, were you raising your hand?
No, but I feel like I should say something. I agree actually with what my colleagues have said. I want more data. That's number one. Well, let me just start over and say thank you for the presentation. I really appreciate it. I think it's excellent, the data that you do have. But I do want more data because I think this is a complex decision. And as my colleague, Councilman Van Grack and Councilman Member Fulton said, we do want to be fiscally responsible. And whether it's the study or whether it's the local preferences, I wanted to have more data and more understanding of how much money we're talking about, because we are entering a financial period that might be rough. So we should actually look at, what we're spending and why.
Thank you. I have a follow-up question in terms of the writing of contracts. So who do we ride the most? Is it the county? Is it COG?
It's a variety. And like I said, it depends on the good or the service. So Montgomery County, Baltimore County, Howard County, we use COG contracts as well. We use a lot of the consortium contracts, so like Sourcewell. We use, so it varies.
And when we write those agreements, are those represented through purchase orders, master agreements, both?
Both. It could be either.
Okay. And we don't have a sense of what percentage of our total spend that represents at this time? Because I think it could be pretty big, right?
Yes.
It tends to be the larger contracts.
Yes.
Okay. So one thought I also had is I don't know whether the city includes some of the language that the county has. This is just one example, right? So some of these larger organizations that we're writing, they already have local or MFDV goals. But you have to, so when I was asking this question, you specifically have to sort of adopt those clauses, called piggyback clauses. And I don't know if we do, but that could be a way of leveraging their program that they're spending that staff time and work on and getting the results that we want to see if we piggyback on those clauses. So for example, if we have a prime contractor at the county that is not local MFDV or, veteran owned, I'm just giving an example, and we say you won, but they can say, oh, for the county, I have to have this local preference or this veteran preference, but for the city, I may not. So can we look at how we're working on that? Like, do we currently require them to do what they're doing for the county in terms of the subcontracting plans that they submit?
No.
No, but that could be something we could look at, right? That's one of the strategies we can explore. And that doesn't cost us a lot of money. And it's a huge part of our spending. So I think just from our conversation, to me, this is a great discussion, and I really appreciate all the work we're doing, but it sounds like perhaps there could be a bit more analysis.
Yep.
Mr. Mihalik.
Are you ready for a summary of what I thought I heard?
Yes.
Or not yet? Okay.
Go for it. Wait, Councilmember Shaw has one more comment. Sorry.
I do want to echo my colleagues and just share that I would like to have some more data and information, particularly around the outreach, just to see if there's more options. Like, what are you thinking about in terms of our outreach program and ways it could change? I do think there's a lot of great benefits about what we're already doing, and you're doing excellent work. But I want to see ways that you think that we could build on it, especially, again, using the information accessible to us from the county and their disparity study. It has a lot of great data in there. It does list a lot of the general barriers, like access to credit, relationships, lacking relationships with financial institutions that can create a lot of these disparities. So if you could also just add a few more options. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to add one more point, and just looking at page 20, the 2024 procurement report, page 13, it looks like 50% are ones that, 53% we go out for bid. So that's the percentage that would be affected by what we do with any programs we create. But there's still a large percentage that we're either writing. And so my comments on looking at our practices there, I do think that's pretty serious, because there are a lot, cooperative writers is 26%, sole sourcing 2%. So there's a lot, even if we do all this program work, that we'd be missing if we don't also look at how we write contracts. So I wanted to make that point. Mr. Mihalik.
Thank you, Mayor. Really good feedback. This is exactly what we're looking for. When with a work session like this, when we ask these big, broad questions, we only expect big, broad guidance, and we got that tonight. So here's what I heard. We definitely want more data on this these critical decisions are important too, so we'll do that. Number two, you want to hear more about best practices, not just here in the county, but what are other cities doing that are of similar size as us. I did not hear that we should run out and do a disparity study. I heard that loud and clear. Alternatively, you did want to say, hey, what are some other ways that we could enhance our outreach practices, but bring that back to us, and we want to take a look. Same thing with local preference policies, bring back some ideas, what that might look like. It doesn't necessarily have to be 5%, maybe it could be smaller. There's different ways. What are some options? What are the best practices there? And the same with ESG. What are some different criteria that we may be able to build into our bidding process as a standard process to make sure that we're getting contractors, bidders, purveyors that understand environmental and social needs and can provide that in their bidding documents, and is there a way for us to provide additional preference in that space? So, and then I also heard, how do we track this more deliberatively, right? The one thing I didn't hear, and I can't answer it yet, and we can't until we get into a program, if we move forward with doing additional practices in this space, what is the actual cost to the city? We really don't know, right? So unless we do something really firm like the disparity study, which is hundreds of thousands of dollars, if we do these lighter but could be equally effective outreach practices, and we set our standards and thresholds in knowing you guys want more data, we'll be able to track that over the next couple of years. So we'll come up with some ideas. We'll bring this back to council and give you guys some options, and then we'll ask for more direct feedback at that time.
Thank you. Can I add a few things? Okay, so we also talked about the annual reporting process and looking at multi-year in these categories. So there's some of those things we can do now without doing a big survey, but if we could at least update and start doing the multi-year, that's important. I don't know if you captured, I guess you put best practices, that could be under, but the writing of the contracts is huge because it represents a large portion of how we do our business, and can we improve our practices there? And then in terms of the subcontracting, that's another discussion. I didn't know if you captured that in one of your pieces, but I just wanted to flag that also represents an important part of this picture. I heard my colleagues talk about, I don't know if there's broad support for this, but just as we're looking at MFTV, dividing up the categories so we have better understanding of the bigger picture. I don't know if that's easy or hard to do, but you'll come back to us and tell us whether that's feasible. Maybe not what the data we have, but going forward. And then just in general, looking at is what we're doing now working? One thing I didn't hear necessarily majority feedback on or not, so I just want to put it out there, is looking into whether we are requiring our contractors to have a minimum, the minimum wage. I don't know if you're doing that or not, or if you're going to tell us if you do or not, but I just want to see if
for us, a little off topic, but we'll still study it and bring it back when we bring this whole package back.
It's exactly related to locality.
Yep.
Because if someone is out of state and they're paying, I'm just joking, but I'm just going to make up a random number, but they're paying $10 an hour.
Yep.
And we're requiring the minimum wage here, then our companies here are disadvantaged. That hurts our locality.
Understood.
So if you could get back to us and tell us what you're doing, and we can make decisions, and maybe a higher cost for that, and maybe that's something we pursue now, but I just, the living wage, minimum wage discussion is something I think we should probably just track and learn more about. Colleagues, Councilmember Larry.
I just wanted to say that was really, in particular, why I was thinking through the in-state versus out-of-state, in-county versus out-of-county, because, local preference, Montgomery County having its own minimum wage. And I'm going to just say minimum wage at this point because that's, the metric that is universally used. When I was thinking about, the advantages of other jurisdictions, that would be an advantage, right, for like a state with, no minimum wage law. They could look a lot leaner, perhaps, than something local. So thank you for raising that again.
Dr. Miles, did I see your hand up?
No, Madam Mayor, I appreciate the discussion. We didn't quite get to where I wanted, but that's okay. That's what consensus is all about. I look forward to things coming back. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Just to clarify, on ESG, they're coming back to us with more information because we don't have a sense of, is the current policy working? So more to come.
Understood. Thank you.
Councilmember Shaw.
Madam Mayor, I do support your point around learning, around getting more information around the minimum wage, but just noting again that there is not a living wage.
Mayor, just so expectations are understood, it's going to be several months before we bring this back, but we're on it. So thank you.
I'm wondering, the annual report will be posted online. Is it possible just at minimum to update the chart for the MFDV, there's publicly information, but just to put the 22, 23, 24 data on that page.
Yes, we can update that.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments, colleagues? Okay. Thank you so much to the finance team. We cannot do any city business without you. And I know every department must flow through you, so we really appreciate the work that you're doing to produce high-quality RFPs and to support our goals. Thank you. Colleagues, we have another work session. I'm seeing that we might need a break. So if we can be back by 8:40, does that work? Okay. Good evening, Rockville. Today is still April 28th, 2025. We are reconvening meeting 11-25. We are in agenda item 12B, homeownership programs, community-wide and city employee work session. Welcome, Ryan Trout.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you this evening about down payment assistance and employee homebuyer assistance programs. April is National Fair Housing Month, marking the passage of the Fair Housing Act of 1968. But more than 50 years later, the legacy of segregation still shapes our communities, determining where people can live, who can access wealth through homeownership, and which neighborhoods receive investment or face displacement. Today, Black homeownership rates are nearly as low as they were when the Fair Housing Act was first passed. In 1968, 41% of Black Americans owned homes. More than 50 years later, that number has barely risen to 44%. While nearly 73% of white American families own homes. This results in a widening racial wealth gap, continued displacement of Black and brown families, and sustained disparate outcomes based on race. Additionally, as you guys heard in an earlier work session a few months ago, a special presentation, the Human Services Needs Assessment identified a lack of affordable housing and a need for navigation services. I'm hoping this evening you'll see that our approach to homeownership to be an informed and focused way of supporting the economic mobility goals of residents. So we're going to start with some requested feedback. We're then going to go into some various backgrounds, so to be some national data, some local data, some about some various programs, and then we'll turn our attention to programs. We'll talk about next steps, and then we'll circle back to that requested feedback. So the requested feedback that the department is looking for this evening is, do you agree that the homeownership assistance program, the down payment assistance homeownership program, should focus on households earning up to 80% of the area median income? Do you agree that the homeownership assistance program should focus on down payment and closing cost assistance up to 10% of the household's maximum purchase capacity? And do you agree with layering the employee down payment assistance program, the first generation buyer, and the opportunity area bonuses, which we'll get into further in the presentation? First, housing is one of 5 guiding principles, not 3, I apologize. In 1993, the mayor and council provided a total of $520,000 to establish the Real Estate Effort for Affordable Community Housing, or REACH program. In 2022, the mayor and council approved funds to assist employees with down payments when buying a home in Rockville. In 2024, there were 3 work sessions on the city's housing strategies, supply, subsidy, and stability. And home ownership assistance was approved as a strategy by the mayor and council. So we're going to back up real quick. Before we jump into the rest, I just want to go over a few key terms. AMI is the Washington Metropolitan Area Median Income. Household size is the number of members in the family or household, so this includes children. Number of bedrooms, this is the total number of bedrooms per unit using the low-income housing tax credit parameters set by the state. And this is usually 1 less bedroom per the number of members in the household. Purchase capacity is an estimate of the maximum dollar amount a household could purchase a home while maintaining an affordable monthly payment, which is about 1/3 of their monthly income. DPA stands for down payment assistance, and a GSE is government-sponsored enterprises like Fannie and Freddie. So we're going to take a step back and we're going to look at kind of some national statistics. First-time homebuyers decreased by 24% of the market, the lowest since the National Association of Realtors began tracking in 1981. Prior to the Prior to 2008, the historical norm was closer to 40%. According to recent research from the National Association of Realtors, 52% of first-time buyers utilized a conventional loan to finance their home, 29% used FHA, and 9% used VA loans. A newly published report from the Urban Institute highlights disparities in Black housing wealth across different U.S. local markets, despite improvements in the Black homeownership rate. While the national Black homeownership rate rose from 41.2% in 2015 to 44.3% in 2022, Black households still hold a disproportionately low share of total housing wealth. In 2022, they own only 5.9% of housing wealth, while representing 11.9% of households. The analysis calls for localized policy solutions such as down payment assistance in areas with declining Black homeownership rates or support for home improvements in markets where Black homeowners own lower value homes. Here in Rockville, this is using some U.S. Census data. We had trouble layering in some of the demographic information. It wasn't collected. But I just wanted to give you kind of a flavor for what our homeowners here in Rockville look like. So of the nearly 27,000 owner-occupied housing units, just over 14,000 are owner-occupied. The median value of those is just south of $660,000. And of those with a mortgage, close to 5,000 are spending more than $3,000 a month on their mortgage. As a percentage of their monthly income, we just talked about kind of the housing cost burdens, 4.2% spend between 30 and 34.9%, while over 21% spend more than 35% of their monthly income on their mortgage, meaning that they are housing cost burdened. Nationally, down payment and closing cost assistance programs are designed to help low and moderate income families overcome one of the primary barriers to home ownership, saving enough for the down payment and closing costs. These programs can take various forms, including grants, low or no interest loans, and deferred loans, which are often provided by local housing agencies, nonprofit organizations, or state housing finance agencies, sometimes through participating lenders. Eligibility typically involves meeting income limits, home purchase price limits, and other requirements such as being a first-time buyer, using the home as the primary residence, and completing homebuyer education or counseling. In early 2025, the department conducted a survey of the COG housing departments. We received responses from 13 jurisdictions, which included 15 different programs. So of that survey, what we found was that most jurisdictions offer one or more down payment or closing cost assistance programs, while 3 jurisdictions do not offer any down payment programs. All the programs have income limits, though they do vary. Some programs have homebuyer education requirements or geographic restrictions, and very few jurisdictions offer separate homebuyer programs specifically for their employees. I will flag, though, the question in the survey may have been misleading on my part. I called them first-time employee homebuyer programs, so that may have been why we didn't get any responses, or very few responses there. Shifting now to the REACH program, as I mentioned earlier, it was established in 1993. It had a total of $375,000, $75,000 a year for 5 consecutive years for down payment assistance, and $145,000 for infrastructure and program administration. This program was transferred in 1997 to the Housing and Community Initiatives, Inc., or HCI, where it resides today. HCI manages all aspects of the program, which includes limiting first-time homebuyers with 100% of the AMI. They provide down payment and closing cost assistance with soft loans up to $12,000, 0% interest, with principal payments due after 7 years or upon sale. So after 7 years, there either is a bulk payment to pay off the loan that they received, or homeowners then go into monthly payments on top of their mortgage payment. These funds are distributed on a first-come, first-served basis, and applicants apply after finding a home and qualifying for a mortgage. There are currently 6 outstanding loans totaling more than $61,000, with an outstanding balance of more than $40,000. These numbers are a little dated. This is as of November of 2022. The department has a few concerns. HCI has not been audited. They haven't provided annual reports which are required to be submitted to the city. There's no clear data on program usage or effectiveness, and the promotion of the program is unclear, relying on the website and informal communications. In 2022, they notified the city that they no longer wish to administer the REACH program. So we are in talks with them to transition the program funds and administration from HCI to the city of Rockville, and to convert those 6 outstanding loans into new program loans with updated terms to align with the redesigned programs that we'll be getting into. Also in 2022, the city, the mayor and council asked the department to conduct an employee survey for the homebuyer program or home ownership program with a response rate of 138 or 27.5% of full and part-time staff. The survey response demonstrated strong support for an employer-assisted housing benefit to help address housing affordability and encourage employee residents near the place of employment. Nearly 64% said cash for down payment and closing costs was an obstacle to purchasing a home, and over 79% answered yes to the question, if assistance was provided through your employer, would you consider purchasing a home closer to your employment? So we've talked about a number of things kind of in that first section in the background, but some of the major points that the department was taking away was declining first-time home ownership rates, stagnant Black homeownership rates, large wealth gap, and cost-burdened homeowners. So we tried to use that to inform our program design. So next we're going to talk about down payment assistance program design, which is built for the broader community. Then a first-generation homebuyer bonus, opportunity area bonus, and then the employee homeownership assistance program. So staff examined income thresholds for household size to determine purchase capacity and different DPA amounts to design the most effective and efficient program. Staff used HUD-published DC Metro thresholds at 80%, 100%, and 120% AMI for households with 1 to 8 members. We used the Maryland DHCD low-income housing tax credit bedroom to household size equivalents, determined a maximum affordability threshold using lender-based debt capacity and household income. Then we reviewed 2024 Bright MLS sales data for various bedroom size and purchase capacities in order to make a determination of the percentage of the market households would be able to access. What we found was that households with incomes at or greater than 100% AMI already have access to the entirety of the market, at least based on the sales data from 2024, right? Very limited data set without the down payment assistance. However, households with 80% AMI lack access to homeownership, and they saw substantial growth in market access when provided with 10% down payment assistance, specifically those in larger households. So based on that, staff recommends to set the maximum income threshold at 80% AMI, allow up to 10% in down payment assistance, allow assistance to be used for both down payment and closing costs. These loans would be deferred until the homeowner sells or refinances the homes. The loans will be structured as a second mortgage where repayment happens after the primary mortgage is settled. Then we would recycle the repaid loans so that they can be used to help more families, multiplying the impact of limited resources. So this can layer then with an employee program, which we'll get to. But the city employees that may qualify for this program include many in the administrative scale, most police officer 1, and various other officers depending on their step and grade, and almost all staff in the ASME union scale, including maintenance and sanitation employees. Next, we're going to talk about first-generation homebuyer bonus. Generational wealth refers to the financial assets passed from one generation of a family to another. Wealth disparities among historically underserved consumers are often linked to the absence of or interruption of generational wealth accumulation that is primarily achieved through homeownership. First-generation homebuyers are less likely to receive financial assistance from parents to help with the down payment and other upfront costs. A lack of generational wealth through homeownership also contributes significantly to the perpetuation of wealth disparities. So staff recommends using a GSC defined definition of first-generation homebuyer They define that as one in which each borrower meets the following requirements. First is purchasing the property. Right? They have to be a home buyer. They'll reside in the subject property as the principal residence. They have no ownership interest, sole or joint, in another property during the last 3 years preceding the note date. And one of the following must also apply. No parent of the borrower has owned a property in the last 3 years preceding the note date. The borrower has aged out of the foster care system, or the borrower has become emancipated.
Can you repeat the last piece about parents? Sorry, I just wanted to make sure I wrote that down.
Yes. Let me see. So no parent of the borrower has owned a property in the last 3 years preceding the note date. The borrower has aged out of the foster care system, or the borrower has become emancipated. Right. So those are both disruptions to the transfer of generational wealth. So what the department recommends is providing a $10,000 first-generation homebuyer bonus to qualifying homebuyers. The bonus can be added to the down payment assistance program or the employee-based program. These would be 10-year forgivable loans. So these are not like the silent second that would be repaid. This would be about after a 10-year period, allowing that to be the homeowner to then gain that $10,000 in equity of the home. And then all borrowers in the loan must complete and sign the GSE's first generation homebuyer certification to attest to their status. Next, I was hoping to, we'll discuss the opportunity area bonus. In a series of studies beginning in 2014, Opportunity Insights has shown how the neighborhoods in which children grow up shape children's outcomes in adulthood. In collaboration with researchers at the U.S. Census Bureau, they constructed the Opportunity Atlas. This interactive mapping tool presents estimates of children's chances of climbing the income ladder for every 70,000 neighborhoods across America. So this is by each census tract. Social mobility varies widely, both across cities and across neighborhoods within cities in the U.S. On average, a child from a low-income family raised in San Jose or Salt Lake City has a much greater chance of reaching the top than a low-income child raised in Baltimore or Charlotte. However, the Opportunity Atlas shows that there are neighborhoods within Baltimore and Charlotte that have higher rates of upward mobility than the average neighborhood in San Jose or Salt Lake. Children's outcomes in adulthood vary sharply across neighborhoods that are just a mile or two apart. Moving to a better neighborhood earlier in childhood can increase a child's income by several $1,000s. And traditional indicators of local economic success, such as job growth, do not always translate into greater upward mobility. So next, what you'll see here is a map of Rockville using the Opportunity Atlas. Now, first, I want you to notice there is no red on this map. Right? We don't have a single census tract that has like negative economic mobility. So that immediately is like something to be applauded. However, you can see that there is a difference in certain neighborhoods and that the highest opportunity areas lay to the south and west. So staff recommends providing a $15,000 opportunity area bonus to qualifying families with children that purchase homes in the city's highest opportunity areas. This would be added on top of the down payment assistance to increase the buyer's maximum purchase capacity. But like the down payment assistance, it would be a silent second. It would be repaid at the time of transfer or sale of the property. Next, the Employee Homeownership Assistance Program. As mentioned, in 2022, the mayor and council set aside $250,000 for an employee homeownership assistance program that would provide $25,000 in down payment assistance, down payment and closing cost assistance to City of Rockville employees who purchased in the city. Would provide the assistance as a soft second, 0% interest repayable at sale or transfer. Eligible staff must work for the city for at least 6 months, and the loans can be combined with the Rockville Down Payment Assistance Program or the other bonuses mentioned. So that program bonus and interplay, the down payment assistance and the employer programs can be combined under certain circumstances, right? You'd have to qualify for both of them separately in order to combine them. All bonuses then are mutually exclusive. There's only one additional loan or grant that can be added to the down payment or employee programs. The idea is not to like triple and quadruple stack these things in order to make sure we have the resources. Down payment programs can also be layered with the city's moderately priced dwelling unit and the Rockville Housing Enterprises Housing Choice Voucher homeownership programs. So we've talked a lot about like the subsidy side. Just a little plug for the supply side is that the zoning ordinance rewrite will also help allow for more housing typologies, which should provide more affordable home ownership housing opportunities. So you might be scratching your head saying, wow, Ryan, that was a lot. How does this actually work? So we take an example of a police officer one, a single officer with an income of $66,768. Without down payment assistance, the maximum purchase capacity would be about $280,000, which is still about 75% of the market in this studios and one bedroom. However, they would be eligible at that income for the down payment assistance program, which would provide them with $31,833, which would give them access to an additional 5% of the market. And then with the employee program layered on top of that, they would then have access to 90% of the one-bedroom market in the city. And that would come to a total city support of $56,833.
Can you just clarify, did you say this would mostly be for a condo?
This would be in this scenario, that's a one-bedroom unit, one-bedroom for sale unit.
And not factoring condo fees?
It does not. No, it does not. Though I'm happy to rerun the math with condo fees. Another example using a maintenance worker one, public works or recreation and parks. In this scenario, the individual income is $53,420, but their household income is $105,650. So their partner makes up the other $52,230. They're married, family of 5. So they'd be looking then in that bedroom equivalency for a 4-bedroom unit. Without down payment assistance, they have purchasing capacity of about $442,000 or 12% of the 4-bedroom market. However, with the down payment assistance of nearly $50,000, that expands to 27% of the market. And then when we add the employee program of $25,000, they now have purchasing capacity of $516,000 or 34.5% of the market, which totals the city's support to $74,098. Now, getting away from employees and just member of the community, who's a qualifying Rockville resident, they have a household income of $97,800. They're a family of 4. Without the down payment assistance, they have access to about 13% of the market. With our down payment assistance, that increases up to 33% of the market. And this person is a first-generation home buyer, so we're going to give them that $10,000 forgivable loan, which brings it up to 37.5% of the market for a total city support of $54,449. In the first year of the program, our program goals are to provide 10 down payment assistance loans with an average of $46,594, 2 first-generation bonuses, an opportunity bonus, and to assist 5 city employees. This would be an estimated total program cost in year 1 of nearly $626,000. So that would be combined with the $250,000 that was set aside for the employee program, the money brought in from HCI, and then a little bit of the additional HOF money. So our next steps, the department will use the feedback we received tonight to finalize the program design. We'll create and establish processes, procedures, application tracking documents, all the things we have to do to run a program. We'll work with CCE to develop an outreach plan and communicate with lenders. And our goal is to launch these programs on October 1, 2025. Circle back.
A huge thank you. I know that took a lot of brain power and finagling and a lot of research. So just want to say thank you. I know for some of us who've been on council before, this has been like, we're waiting for this for 2 years and we're so excited. I know all of my colleagues have really been supportive of all of our housing the housing goals we've discussed, and this is an important part of that. So just want to say thank you for the thoughtfulness that you put in here, and also giving some examples so that we can see how it plays out. I also know that our employees have been waiting for this. I've heard from so many who said, when is that coming out? It's my understanding that several of our union employees have been waiting as well, and are very interested in this, and I may be watching tonight. So just wanted to say that, and I think it's, one of the things we're looking at is we want to be the best place to work, and we want to support our employees. I have a question about the AMI recommendations that you have. I think 80% could be kind of tough, and I was wondering if we might more look at 120%. If anyone is a police officer that's not at the level 1, if they're in our daycare or other places, there are so many more employees who would just automatically be cut out of that. And just to clarify, are you suggesting the AMI for both the citywide as well as the employee, or can you just clarify that?
Yeah, so the employee program would be, all city employees would be eligible for that program. So that $25,000, if you would find yourself at the 120% AMI, you'd have a significant purchasing capacity already, and then we would provide the $25,000 on top of that. The down payment assistance program is for the one that is primarily focused at low-income buyers in the city, and that can be both community members or employees who qualify.
Okay, I appreciate that. So this is when you're talking about the AMI, you're really talking about the citywide program. I still question the 80%, just because then you're looking at teachers, and a lot of teachers wouldn't even qualify with that if they're in I think 120% AMI, isn't that like 150 for a family of 4? Is that about right?
Give me a moment, I'll pull up my spreadsheet.
Okay, well, I'll give you some time on that. I really like, the iterations that you have. For the employee program, is there a requirement that employees stay in the city for a period of time? Because I've looked at some programs, and that does tie. It's a benefit for people who stick around here. They can't just be here in 6 months and leave in 1.
Under the proposed guidelines, they could.
They could leave.
Yes. So they have to be here for 6 months past the probationary period. Right. It's more of a tool to attract staff, not necessarily to retain. These are silent seconds, so as soon as they sell that home, we then collect the money back. So if they were to move away, say they were to take a job somewhere else and move away, we would then get those funds back into our recycled loan program. However, if they say were to stay in the city as a resident and then go work for the county, as long as they had the home, the silent second would remain on the property as it's currently designed.
Yeah, I would like to, this is just me, but I think there might be some benefit to also using it as a retention tool. So some employees would stay for a period of time. I've seen a number of organizations use that both for tuition assistance payment and employee assistance payment, but I welcome the feedback of my colleagues on that. And then the other big comment I wanted to make is on the opportunity program. I get what we're trying to do, but it does trouble me because we would essentially not be supporting people who want to live on basically the east side of the city, based on the map that you showed.
Can you?
Along Rockville Pike too.
So the program essentially supports people who move to wealthier areas.
Yeah.
Yes, the opportunity bonus, the premise is to provide, based on the research by Opportunity Insights and Raj Chetty, particularly for families with children under the age of 12, moving into a higher opportunity area has the most significant long-term benefits on upward mobility. And so the opportunity bonus is a targeted way to say families with children that move into this higher opportunity area, that we're going to assist you with additional down payment assistance. It doesn't take any of the other down payment assistance away from anybody that wants to move elsewhere in the city. It just provides additional assistance because those units are more expensive.
We also use the word better neighborhoods, and it just challenges me. I think I value the entire city, and I think we have great schools all over the city. Thinking about Rockville High Schools on the east side, and that was in a different quadrant. They have an IB program. They produce outstanding scholars. So I do see where that could work nationally, right? I have been in one of those neighborhoods where most of my neighbors didn't graduate high school, right? But I think this is a little bit different here. So that's the one that kind of gave me pause, that I don't necessarily support at this time. But I have some other questions, but I want to yield to my colleagues. And overall, I just think you did a fantastic job.
Madam Mayor.
Oh, sorry. Councilman Van Grack, and then Councilman Fulton.
I'll try to be brief. Fantastic job, because I think this is a lot of what we want to focus on and look at. One question I had is because much like the mayor, I've heard from employees and city staff that are really waiting for us to jump with this. And I know that in your program goals, you talk about assisting 5 employees. However, if we talk about the down payment assistance generally, it's going to city residents as a whole. Has there been any talk about prioritizing city staff and employees so that we can help more than potentially 5 city employees, especially at the start of this? Because if we're prioritizing our city staff, either people coming in or our current city staff, our police officers, to do more than just 5 and prioritize that with the down payment assistance, we could potentially help more of this targeted area, as opposed to, and don't get me wrong, we also want to be helping the public, but this priority of being able to help our employees, has there been any talk about prioritizing employee just for the down payment assistance?
Can I just, while you're getting the data or pulling that up, when we initially approved the employee assistance program, we had a target of 10 employees per year.
The one that shows how we 5 employees, 10 residents, towards the end. So Councilmember Van Grack, the answer is yes, you could. That's straightforward on that one. But our thought was, since these are both new programs, that we're just not sure what the appetite's going to be. If you're prioritized just giving it to 5 city employees, then arguably you may need to take away how many loans you go out to the community at large. Because I do think our budget at this point, considering you guys are about to adopt the budget, is $625,000. What I'd recommend is we try this for the first year, see what the appetite is, and then adjust from there.
Well, and I guess, I know you're talking about, I'm not necessarily talking about moving numbers here. I'm saying you've got 10 DPA loans. We could say, with regard to those 10 DPA loans, we're first going to prioritize employees for the opportunity for those DPA loans, and therefore see what the appetite is, whereas it could be within the first 6 months we've lost it and we're really only helping 5 employees. And just as the mayor said, we could be helping significantly more if for those 10 DPA loans we're initially giving those opportunities to city employees.
Agreed.
Do you see what I'm saying there?
Okay. I do.
And similarly, kind of as the mayor was getting at a little bit, I know we've got a lot of these additional opportunity bonuses, this idea here. I would rather be helping more people and employees even, stay or get into the city of Rockville than some of these other micro goals, because I think this macro goal of being able to get more people into home ownership, and especially our employees, our police officers, our staff into the city of Rockville, is a more of a macro goal than some of these micro, which are also important. I mean, the staff's done a wonderful job here talking about all of the different goals, but just as you said, with some of the more macro goals that we're looking at here, that might be a better idea of use of funds.
Yeah, and you could, to your point, I'm sorry, Mayor, so
Please proceed.
You could take the bonuses and then shift those into the overall loan program. That way you're not adding more money, you're just shifting it away. But I'll wait for direction from council.
That was my similar thought, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will just note that I support the original intent of the program for 10 employees at least. Councilmember Fulton.
So I'll echo some people and I'll just be super brief. So, I lost your feedback slide, but I'll take a stronger tone even than I think some of my colleagues. I don't support the opportunity bonus, like at all. I on the employee home ownership, I understand, and I also want to support our employees. I do. One of my concerns is that we're offering this money to employees that want to live in Rockville, and I understand why. But at the same time, that same amount of funds is not available to any of our employees that aren't actually interested in homeownership right now, but they might need tuition assistance, or they might actually want to buy just for the line. I worry about the narrowness of the program and the benefit to our staff. It's very restrictive in that regard, but I'm okay with it. But I wouldn't want to add another restriction in the retention respect of, I think if you've been here and we've given you the money and you've bought a home in Rockville, that's sufficient. We shouldn't tie it to continued employment. Everything else that you had on here, yes, I support 1. Yes, I support 2. I just don't support the opportunity area. I also have reservations about the first generation home buyer because of the limited amount of money and where we want to put it. I understand the tie, I do, but what we're trying to do is support people that we know do not have the ability to get into home ownership because of their, and we don't know that that's true of first generation buyers. I was actually intrigued that the definition is 3 years, that they could not, it's not necessarily a first generation home. Like they could have owned and then just didn't for a little while, or their parents could have owned and then just didn't for a little while. So particularly with that definition, I'd like to see what my colleague said, but I would also be willing to remove that bonus and add it so we could spread more of it around.
Thank you. Councilman Valeri.
Okay, so I will follow my colleagues' format. On number 1, I am in agreement with the mayor. I think that as somebody who's, like many of us, whose child had multiple teachers who were commuting in from Frederick and further out, I would love to make it so that more teachers in particular, everybody of course, and especially our police officers, but I know for teachers in particular with the day starting early, it's really tough the farther that you live from Rockville. And I don't wish 270 on anybody. So I would say up to 120 would be where I would want to go with that. I also agree with what my colleague said on both my colleagues said on number 2. I understand why you would want to have, for tracking purposes and maybe utilization tracking, having these being separate and distinct programs might be helpful. So I'm open to that. I completely my monitor just went away. Now it's back. Well, I completely understand what my 2 council colleagues were stating, as we can move it here, we can move it there. I think until we see what utilization even looks like, seeing as we've not had this kind of program, I would want to keep them separate until we get, again, maybe at the end or at a midpoint of the program, kind of doing an assessment to see what utilization has looked like would be really helpful. I had a lot of thoughts in my head for how I was going to respond to the opportunity area discussion as the only person up here living on the east side of the city. I think the thing that did disturb me the most was saying that we are not a good neighborhood, and the assertion that opportunities are not occurring. The inference is that opportunities are not occurring there. It was, I can tell you as someone living there that is not true at all. And I think that you see a wide array of incomes, actually, probably more so than maybe some other communities. But we want every neighborhood to be an opportunity. And we want every, multifamily building, every neighborhood, that should be the opportunity. Because I was sitting here going, well, what opportunity would occur in other areas of the city that would not be, occurring in Twin Brook or East Rockville? And I just wanted to reflect my own my feelings on that, because I think I reflect a lot of what people on the east side and frankly along the 355 corridor as well. Is that, how are we defining opportunity really at the end of the day? So I just wanted to say that I also concur with my colleagues. I cannot and I will not support the opportunity area bonus for that reason. But I appreciate the creativity of thinking, but frankly, in the way that this was framed, it's really hurtful, if I can be honest.
Thank you, Councilmember Jackson, then Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you, Mayor. First, thanks for the presentation. There was a lot to take in, and I'm sure there's a lot on your end to put down research and everything. So thank you for the excellent presentation. Just a question on the program itself, not including employees. Is it open to anybody who applies or just to Rockville residents?
So we would have to work that out in the full program design. The thought would be qualified folks buying a home in the city of Rockville. So I don't, as currently designed, we haven't really talked about, do you have to be renting in the city for a certain period of time before you can purchase a home here? I know some jurisdictions might broaden that a little bit, so you have to be renting, say, in the county at least for a certain period of time before you can purchase or use the down payment assistance. That way you don't have people like jurisdiction hopping. We have some similar requirements in our REAP program, and so we'd probably look at using similar ones.
No, thank you. I mean, obviously that would be my preference. I don't know about the rest of the body, but looking at Rockville first and then going out. I want to focus a little bit, because I think, let me just drill down. The first generation buyer and everything else that you've kind of proposed, I think you are thinking it differently than some of the body here. So I just want to ask a question. With this program, isn't about getting a house in Rockville and being close to work, or that may be true, but it seems like you're really focused on targeted wealth building for different generations and people who don't really have any wealth to begin with, or need to establish wealth. So can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, and I guess is the answer. Right. So the initial impetus for the kind of digging into this was the mayor and council's direction in 2022 to establish an employee program. When we also learned of HCI looking to end their time with their community-focused program, so this is a great opportunity for us to bring all of this in-house and really look at how we design a community-wide program that also benefits our employees, right? Particularly if you're of low income, if you're at the proposed 80% threshold, the ability to save to purchase a home is a significant barrier. And so it's an opportunity for the city to step in and be able to help provide that opportunity that might not be afforded to you. When it comes to the first generation bonus, that's specifically, despite the GSE's definition, and other jurisdictions do define it differently, and so we could look at something more that's maybe a little more targeted and not as broad as the GSE's definition. But that is really looking at the historical fact that Black and brown communities have been disproportionately cut out of the home buying process. And so how can we help bridge that gap? And so the idea of layering a little bit of additional funds on top and saying, hey, this is about generational wealth creation. So we're going to let that loan disappear after 10 years, and you're going to get to keep that equity instead of having to repay back that small portion.
No, thank you for that answer. I think it's important to just remember that. I mean, it isn't just about having a home near where you work. It's also about wealth creation for certain families. And I think that's really important to keep in mind. Similar to my colleague, as Councilman Van Grack, you, and maybe the city manager answered the question, you implied that this was kind of a pilot, really, and then it would be scaled up. Yeah, afterwards, can you maybe expand on that? And what mechanism, if it is a pilot, and you anticipate expanding it in future years, what mechanism would you have to fund that?
Yeah. If I made it seem like it was a pilot, I didn't intimate that. I apologize for
Okay.
that. I meant it's new program. Both those programs are new, and we just don't know what the take rate's going to be. We just don't until we activate the program. A lot of anecdotes, and I've heard this, I've heard that. But until we put the program out there and people actually apply, take interest, and we award these different programs, we just don't know how many people are going to take it, right? It is infinitely scalable up and down, but at the end of the day, it still costs money to fund it. So every budget year, we'll say, here's what we learned from these two programs. Here's how many people took it. What do you think, council, data-wise? And then Ryan and I may make a recommendation. We think you should increase this program next year from 600,000 to $1 million, et cetera. We could continue using the HOF fund, and we could also use additional general fund dollars to seed that. But as you know, council members, since we're not quite done with the budget, we have to continue to reprioritize everything in the city to figure out what that sweet spot is for funding.
And my last question is kind of an aside, but I was reading through the document that you put together before, and you kind of mentioned it here in this presentation, the PowerPoint. And I just really want to focus on it. So what is the history with ACI? They were founded in 1993, went up to 2022. It seems like there's no data, no audit that went on. Like you had $289,480.37 in the current fund. I think it was about $200,000 to begin with. So what happened? And was there funds that we were still giving them even after that? I'm not really clear what role they have.
Yeah, so my understanding, so we had to kind of unpack this ourselves to try to learn a little bit more about this. The mayor and council, between the years of 1993 and 1997, gave $75,000 a year. Yeah, $75,000 a year to the local realtors association to run the REACH program. So it was an outsourced program. In 1997, the realtors had kind of a handshake agreement to give it to HCI. HCI has now been running it since 1997. The original documents, it appears that we are supposed to be getting annual reports from the third party conducting the program, but we have been unable to find said reports. So we have now, upon learning that HCI no longer wants to run this program, we are working diligently with them to get it back, to try to get those resources back, so we can account for everything and can kind of move forward in a more deliberate way.
Yeah, and I don't want to belabor the point, but it just seems like there's a can of worms that has been opened there, and you're going to go back and try to actually figure out what's going on and where the money went, where it doesn't go, and we can get some of it back as we should. And so let me just answer the questions. I think number one, yes, I think I support what the mayor was saying. Going up to more than 80%. Number two, I'm fine with. Number three, I don't really support the opportunity area bonuses for different reasons, but yeah, I just don't like the opportunity area bonuses concept. So that's it for my my thoughts.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Shaw.
I, I want to echo my colleagues. Thank you. This is fantastic. I I wanted to just comment that it gives me pause that we've had this program for 3 decades and have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, at least $100,000 and we don't have any data. And I think it does not show a very seriousness around affordable housing or building intergenerational wealth or any of the values that we say that we have. And so I am very appreciative that we are now looking at this program in this body. I know, although we may have some different views about housing, that we agree with this direction in terms of home ownership and building intergenerational wealth. So I do have a few questions. For the I was trying to figure out the scope of, so how many families or loan recipients would receive this funding? Is it like around 20 or so?
So I'm going to kind of answer two things, kind of a comment by Councilman Van Grack and your question. Based on the currently defined goals, yeah, it would be about 15. And that would, because those bonus programs and potentially the employee programs could be layered in, so kind of a maximum of 15 households. These are also goals, right? To say that we're going to help all 10 employees sitting here today, and then I'm back before you in a year, and I only helped 7. Like, I don't want to put myself on the hook for that. So we say 5, and then we hope to do better. But yeah, as currently designed, the goal would be to try to serve 15 households.
And I appreciate that, and that this is an ambitious goal, and I support this program. And I just want to say, within the context of the need, especially when we were going through the stability, just to be clear, there are tens of thousands of families that need stability and need to build intergenerational wealth. And I think this program would be perfectly paired with something like rent stabilization, because it can help to increase the pipeline and the criteria of people who have the ability to save money and be able to maintain a home. And I also just wanted to share, I had some questions about supply. I know based on what I was hearing around market conditions, it's actually more profitable for a lot of developers to build rental units than for sale units, especially because they can charge as much rent as they want. And so I wanted to know, based on the pipeline, how many for sale units, and perhaps you can answer this question later, but how many for sale units we have versus how many rental units that we have. Just to find out within the context, like if we grow this program, if we have some opportunities for housing. Oh, and then I also just want to share that I do strongly support the first generation buyer concept. I do think 3 years is a little too small. I think it should just be, are you a first generation home buyer, period. And I recognize and appreciate the populations in which you are seeking to create equity with that stipulation. So I strongly support that. And I would also like to know, in terms of the 80% AMI,
just in general, with our rental population, how many renters, if it's possible to get this information, how many renters would fall into that 80%? But I firmly believe and support that this program should be prioritized between our city employees and our current renter population to transition into building intergenerational wealth.
Thank you, Councilmember Dr. Miles, and then Councilman Van Grack.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank y'all for the presentation. And generally speaking, I am in favor of most any program that will allow first time or otherwise folks to get into to be able to afford and to purchase a home, to build wealth. And am supportive of all strategies to that end. As outlined, I posed a question to staff, and I'll just lay it out for the viewing and listening public that, and I agree with targeting such programs towards city employees. If we take, say a police officer making a certain income, let's just throw out 100,000, that if we help, give some down payment assistance to other things, with the median home price being, I think it was $660,000 as quoted in the reading. I don't know how they would qualify for a loan, how that officer would qualify for a loan, even with the down payment assistance, given that the amount of their mortgage would probably be north of, $3,000 per month. Actually, I misspoke, more north of $4,000 a month at 7% interest rate on a 30-year loan. So I appreciate the intent that we have, but the reality is that housing is so expensive that these programs, while well-intentioned, I don't know that they will make a significant dent given the housing prices that currently exist. I do support, as recommended by staff, pairing programs, the employment down payment assistance, first generation home buyer, and others. I'd also add in, throwing in the MPDU program, and it's difficult. I think as I've indicated in the past, the MPDU program only helps at the margins at improving home ownership, just because it addresses such a few number of units and such a few number of people. But I think if there are ways to modify the MPDU program, I think there's currently a 30-year window that people would have to stay in the property before being able to realize the full value of the property if they resold. But perhaps modifying that window to maybe 10 years. I think, I think the average homeowner stays in their home maybe 8 years. So make it, lowering it down to 10 years to make it more of an incentive. Because if we think back to the AMI discussion that was had before, I'm certainly in favor of, raising the AMI cap beyond 80%. The reality, though, is that for people making more than 80% AMI, if they were to go on certain programs like the MPDU program, it's more cost advantageous for them long term to just buy something further out because they can realize the profit, the equity in their home a lot sooner than given some of the restrictions and some of the other programs that we have. So I'll answer the question. That was just a broad statement about sort of feasibility in the context of current market conditions that don't seem to be improving. But I mean, for question number one, up to 80%, great. I think I did just outline my concerns about increasing it beyond it, but I'm again in favor of anything that increases the number of people entering homes. Number two, down payment closing cost assistance, yes. Again, I think the reality is that I don't know that it will help much in the context of that, how much housing, that median home cost is here in Rockville as outlined in the presentation. Number three, yes to all. I do recognize the implications as outlined by our council member about designating some neighborhoods, prioritizing some above the others. I do understand the intent of the staff this presentation as well. Again, I'm generally in favor of any program that will put people in homes to the extent that it actually will work. And the broader point was another question I asked of staff earlier, which has been echoed by my colleagues. The broader question, like how successful have the programs been thus far? And as was outlined, we have limited data. I'll end there. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Councilmember Van Grack.
Just to kind of echo and focus the discussion as we've been doing on the requested feedback, I do support increasing the AMI. Where that is, I'm not sure, but I think we can potentially do more with a larger AMI number. I'm fine with the closing costs and assistance. We're talking about up to 10%. With regard to some of the more specific questions, as I mentioned before and was implying, I currently am not in support of the bonuses. I think that I'd like to focus on helping more people, and we can do that with the bonuses being distributed to the DPA and assisting the employees. And as I mentioned before, I would like to help more employees and have the goal above 5 to the extent we can prioritize or focus the DPA on our employees or people coming to be an employee in all groups of the city. That's something I would support.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments of my colleagues. Some people said things that I had written down to say, so I thank you for saying that. I had a couple of thoughts as well. So I will say, when we initially thought about the employee program, it wasn't that 10 had to do it all in 1 year. It was just that it could be 5 and 5, but we weren't just giving it away. And so I guess the question, if you put all the money in one pot, you could have a few city employees. Are you planning to separate the pot so that we can meet the intent of trying to support employees as well?
We could separate the pots. I don't think that was the intent. We know there's a couple of employees that are anxious and excited to do this program. Our goal will be to send out the applications, see when they come in, try to get at least 5 city employees. If we don't get 10 others in the citywide program and more employees want it, then yes, we can then take 6, 7, or 8. So we don't have to set it aside and separate. We're just trying to make sure that if we're creating 2 separate programs, we wanted to make sure that people in both categories can take advantage of the program.
Yeah, I was just concerned that if everyone, let's say a bunch of people who don't live in the city,
Yep.
apply, and then the people who work for the city, they come after those people.
Yep.
I have concerns about that.
Understood. Understood.
So I'm seeing some shaking heads.
Yep.
So I just want to make sure they have been employees waiting for this program for 2 years. I also have concern that we have held up this program implementation, trying to figure out the other part with the HCI mess. So
Yep.
I want to honor what we said we were going to do for employees in a more timely fashion and make sure that if we're saying the seed is 10, right, that was set aside and through an appropriation, that we allow them to work through that 10. Now it may be 5 this year and 5 next year, however that flows, but I want to be careful of the expectations that employees have been having and have been patiently waiting for when this thing is going to finally launch.
Understood.
The other thing I wanted to chat about is there are other programs, and part of this thing is awareness. My colleague mentioned the MPDU program. I think that is not well advertised enough. I know that there's been recent efforts to do more, and I so appreciate that. But when I talk to teachers who work in our community, they have no idea of the program. And we have townhomes and condos coming online. And if they're not on the list, they're not going to get them. So in general, I think the outreach of this has to be paired with the other programs that we have so they can maximize the benefit. So I just wanted to comment on that. The second is that related to outreach and awareness, as we're advertising this opportunity to help low-income communities, communities who have lower income, as well as our employees, there are other programs they could layer on top of this. So, but we don't advertise that. So why couldn't we support what the county is doing and what the state is doing, and now you can layer in? So there's a way to layer in without us having to do all the layering. So I wanted to note the state of Maryland has at least 3 programs. The first time home buyer program for 30-year fixed low loans.
a Flex 30-year with down payment and closing, a partner match, and then the Montgomery Employee Down Payment Assistance Program. I mean, I know that's where there are things that we can model and potentially leverage with our stuff. And so I wanted to just make sure that we're not just thinking that we're an island, but really helping more people in the city of Rockville take advantage of homeownership opportunities and building that economic opportunity for their families. Is that something that you can do?
Yes.
Okay. I ask because sometimes people say, we don't advertise the county or the state. So I just think that in this case, it seems to be perfectly paired to support our goals. The other question too, I think Councilman Grack mentioned, and I think Councilman Jackson as well, are we just doing these loans that get paid back and they're no interest, or whether you're just granting money? And so there is an impact with granting money without getting paid back. And I'm wondering about the split on that, because I do want this program to layer itself and pay itself back so that we can help more people over time. We have to also be fiscally prudent.
Yeah, understood. We do think the coupling of grants and loans is important. Sometimes folks just don't want to take on loans at all. They just want the money granted and that's it. What I can't stress enough is that this is our first foray into these programs. We need to get something out on the street. Our commitment is to have these programs up and running October 1st. And then there's a really good chance we may have to adjust it year 2, year 3, year 4. But we got to get something out there and started and then adjust as we go along. But I still think a combination of grants and loans to start to see where the appetite is the right thing to do right now. But we're willing to adjust that as we move forward.
I'm willing to start with the forgivable loans. I mean, not forgivable loans, the low interest, no interest loans, rather than the grants, because we don't know what the financial forecast is going to be. We have to also just be very mindful of our budgets.
Yep.
So I wanted to flag that as a start. I would be willing to do some forgivable, for example, for employees who stay, but I just,
As currently recommended in the presentation, the Community Down Payment Assistance Program, the Employee Program, and if I count, there's no opportunity bonus, right? So those two would be silent second, 0% interest loans that would be repaid at sale or transfer. The only one that seems to still be on the table is the first generation homebuyer bonus, which is just the $10,000 forgivable after 10 years. And that's to allow for an increased amount of intergenerational wealth transfer.
okay. So I think we have, most people don't want the opportunity piece, so that's out. How much do you think that would cost us over time for the grant portion?
The $10,000 the first generation. So as currently proposed, let me see, 2 in the first year is the goal, so it'd be $20,000 a year. So after 10 years, it would be $200,000 if we did 2 each year. Now, if word got out and it was really successful and more folks wanted it, right, and were eligible for the bonus, then we would see more people qualify for that. But I think
thought about starting with, I have this much for this year in that pot, versus we don't know what the amount of the first time the grants will be, so that you can budget?
Yes, so roughly I started with a rough kind of program cost and then kind of backed into where I thought we might see demand in the program to set the goals. This actually ties back to some of the conversations that you all have been having about increasing it from 80% to 120% AMI. That is a substantial increase in their purchasing capacity, right? We're talking about folks who at the 80% AMI level for an individual, for a family of 4, make about $105,000, I believe it is. At 120% AMI, that jumps significantly. And that means when you divide that by like the constant rate of the 7% interest for a 30-year mortgage, you're looking at a substantial increase in their purchasing capacity. When we take that purchase capacity and now we take 10% of that in down payment assistance, we have dramatically lowered the number of households we are able to serve. So back to your question of, can we serve more than 15? And in a program goal, if we increase it to 120% AMI, we're looking at 5. So we'd have to right size then the down payment assistance from 10% down to 5% or 3%. And then that allows it to layer into other things, but now we're providing significantly less per household, meaning we could then help more households of much more modest means versus deeper subsidy. So I think when designing this, I tested all those different variables, and what I concluded is based on sales data in 2024, anybody with incomes at 100% AMI or higher had access to 100% of the market. Now,
I don't know where that is.
Doesn't mean that doesn't necessarily mean that they can save the down payment, right? Because that is a significant barrier, but it does show that they have access to the whole market. And when you drop to 80%, you see it fall off very starkly, particularly with households of higher numbers. So at 3, 4, 5 person households, we're talking about 7, 10, 15% market access.
Understood.
Yeah, and the down payment assistance helps them get more access to the market. In most cases, still not up to the median, but it does get them substantial access to the market, 30%, 40% access to the market, compared to, say, 12 on their own.
I think that the down payment is the barrier for many people. There are renters who are paying what people pay in mortgage, but they can't save up for that down payment, especially with security deposits and other things. So I think we can underestimate that. I also think that when we're looking at, you're basically limiting people to condos with some of those. And I just wanted to bring some reality that I'm just looking at one of the condos that's not far from here within, it's not the newest condo, but it's fairly new, it's newer, and it doesn't have the same big costs as some other ones do. Your condo fees are $280 to $420 a month. And there are some condos where the cost is $900 to $1,200 a month. I don't think that if we limit it and we kind of basically pin it so that you can only afford a condo, they're still going to have a lot of costs that they're not going to be able to realize because they can't get a loan for condo fees. So I want to be mindful of, if we're looking at real opportunity, considering that there may be some costs that are not factored in here, and what is the real income that it requires and down payment required to get there. So I still, for me, I'm still at 120, but I see your point, and maybe it's that we're not saying we're giving you 10%. Maybe there's a target base, and we're saying we're giving up to $25,000. That's a way to be able to plan how many people you're helping in a given year. Councilman McGrath, did you have a comment? Sorry.
I was just agreeing with you. Okay. No, I was simply shaking my head agreeing with you.
Thank you. But I appreciate that comment. The question I had on HCI, and that was before, I know that we learned about this on our council, and that's what we talked about bringing it back in. So I know that I am concerned about what happened in years past. You said that ended when? What year? What year did the previous mayor and council stop giving to?
1997. It was 1993 to 97, 75,000 each year for 5 consecutive years.
Okay, so that's not. It's about 300,000.
It's 375,000 in funding for the down payment assistance, and then 145,000 for admin and operations.
Okay, all right. Well, that's helpful. If it's managed by the city, and information by the city is FOIA-able, how will you protect people's personal information?
It'd be like any other program where certain information we can redact, and we don't give out names, we don't give out social security numbers, even in a Freedom of Information Act request.
That is true. We can redact. Okay, perfect. That was the one thing that gave me pause. I want to make sure that we're protecting people. And I definitely support First Gen. I question whether that's a grant or a loan. I'm open to, your thoughts and my colleagues' thoughts on that. But I was trying to find ways that we keep more money in the pot and help more people is my intent. But I definitely want to help First Gen homeowners. Councilmember Shaw.
This is just a thought. Could we explore possibly 80 some number of loans that are 80% AMI and then some number of loans that are 120 AMI?
Yeah, I toyed with the idea of like 10% for folks, 10% down payment assistance for folks at 80% AMI and below, and 5% down payment assistance for folks between 80% and some other AMI number. Like I toyed with those.
Okay.
The thing that deterred me was the market access.
Yeah, that is really concerning. Because there's just more available at that higher income, and there's less loans that we can provide. So yeah, I think it's like a balancing act.
Thank you. And your numbers do not take into account condo fees, which is basically the purchasing power for the total amount someone can afford. And the range you're showing are basically condos.
So they're basically condos at the 1 and 2 bedroom size. And these are based on, again, the sales data from last year, right? The market access. And so most of those are condos. As we get to the larger ones, they become attached units and detached units.
Okay, I wanted to note that you have to have a certain amount of disposable income to be able to live in a condo and pay that fee. And we actually see that challenge when we look at MPDUs and certain types of apartments that we were discussing. And we see it in senior living facilities, that we have MPDUs in senior living facilities, but if the amenities fee and the caretaker fee is so high, then can people actually afford it? So I caution us to be mindful that there are condo fees that people can't take out loans for, and we want to make sure that the program works for people. So I've answered 120 for myself. I do also, for number 2, I was just saying, we may need to toy around, is it 10% or is it like a flat 25,000, or just so that you can manage your budget? Because we don't have a blank check. I wish that it could use the Rockville Science Center printing machine, but we don't have that here in the city, and we have to be mindful. So I just wanted to note, I'm also open to a targeted upper limit of what we can provide, because we're also going to educate people on the county and state programs. And I do support helping our employees with the other layered programs minus the opportunity area, because I just don't want to give an impression that any one neighborhood is better than the other, and I think we have all great neighborhoods in Rockville. Councilmember Shaw.
I know we're not calling it a pilot, but I actually think that we should, considering that we have not had a lot of data and information and haven't been able to evaluate. And if we move forward with this, I just wanted to share specifically the information or data that I would like to see, the total number of households assisted, the average assistance amount per household, the success rate, meaning those who are maintaining their home ownership. Unfortunately, not everybody, even if you have the income, is able to maintain their home, especially now when we have increased unemployment. We don't know what the future will hold. And then also I would like to see, since equity is one of the goals, a breakdown of the demographics disaggregated by race.
Thank you. I will add age as well in that. And since you're talking about different parts of the city where people are moving, I would also like to know how many employees leave and how many residents flip over time. I think that's an important marker to look at. And in general demographics, I will also note that I support Rockville, helping Rockville renters first, like we do in the MPDU program. Now it's available to other people, but first on the list is people who are already living or working here, I would also add. So if you're a teacher and you have to live in Frederick, in Clarksburg, Clarksburg's not that far, but far out, I kind of want to support people being able to move closer, so I don't want to exclude people if they work here. Councilmember Larry.
This is kind of a side tangent, but it is connected. And I cannot remember, and I should, as the HSAC council liaison, was an income inequality wealth gap analysis part of the assessment that was completed? And I apologize for putting you on the spot. I was trying to look through my notes furiously, because I think if we haven't done one, that would probably be really helpful. I know it's not a very easy analysis to do, but we know, nationwide what the trends are, that it just keeps growing exponentially over time. I think that would be really helpful as well, because we already know that the wealth gap in the county is significant. And so that would be really, if we could do it for the city, I think that would be great. And then my last side note, but still connected, because it goes to disposable income, is that this is why, in part, some of us are really looking at enhancing our childcare options in the city. That is, first and foremost, one of the most expensive things for a family to have to pay for. And that is, I can, speak for myself, that was really predominantly, while my son was an infant, why there's no way that we could ever get close to saving. We still ended up really not being able to afford to save, but it's childcare is extremely expensive, and that is one of those things that, like condo fees, we might be able to get that information out. But if you have a family of 4 and 3 children, maybe a single parent, and 2 are under the age of 3, they're not going to be able to save for a down payment, not with the cost of childcare right now. So.
Thank you. One other data question. Is it possible, so I've asked this for the electrification grants in the past on the county, how many Rockville residents are benefiting? Is it possible to find out how many Rockville residents are benefiting from the county and state if they're collecting that information? Yeah. I think that would be helpful for us to track. One, from is it well known and people using it, and maybe we need to do, if it's not, we need to do more awareness than we are. And B, how people might be layering these programs together. Okay. All right. Do you have any other questions in terms of clarity that you need from us?
I'd like to summarize to make sure, if that's okay.
Sure.
So I heard the majority of council say that the AMI should be set at 120%. I heard support on question number 2 about closing costs. I heard support for first generation buyer. I heard no to the opportunity area bonuses. I then asserted that we'll take the money that we've designated for the opportunity area bonuses, which wasn't that much, and we'll roll that back all the way up into the base assistance program. I also heard that we should prioritize city employees. Let me stress again, I think I found the right definition. This isn't a pilot, it's actually a beta program, right? It's our first try. So we know we're not going to get this perfect. I think, let's just say speed to market's important from all of you. So we do want to launch this October 1st. We'll gather data, all the data that you guys requested right away. And there's a really good chance we'll have a report to you within a year to let you know what the traction is like on this. And if we have to adjust, we'll certainly adjust after that.
Thank you. I'll look to my colleagues, but I just want to clarify also there's a data component that you're going to be tracking the data. I think you captured that with your annual report. There was a question of preference for Rockville, live or work. Just want to ask Mike, do you need clarity on that, or do you want us to do a straw poll?
I heard priority for people that live or rent in town already. I thought I heard that.
Perfect. Yep. I just want to make sure you got that. And you heard us prioritizing the employee from the majority, but is there a possibility, because I know some people already said this, is there a possibility to roll out the employee program, at least start collecting names of people who might be interested first? Because they've been waiting on this. I'm just wondering, because that the larger
getting-
population is much more complicated.
We're getting way down in there. Let's launch the program and then we'll circle back with you guys if that's okay.
Well, it's about when we launched the program. So could you, I know, I heard it from my colleagues. I just want to see, is it like there's too much to even do employees alone, or?
I mean, we have to hire an employee just yet, so we'll
Okay, so
get
you don't
this-
have the staff to do this?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I wanted to understand. Is it a resource limiting factor?
Yep.
And in some places, HR is involved as an employee benefit, but this is going to be all done by DHCD, and you have to do our code updates.
So
on-
CCE and HR, both from retention, recruitment, and marketing standpoint, they'll be involved, but HCE is going to be the lead department on
Okay,
this.
that's helpful to know. And then I'm not sure we have clarity on loan versus grants for parts of it.
I thought we did.
Just to clarify, are you guys okay with the split on loans and grants? I heard some people say I prefer there's a payback. I just wanted to just get a sense of the body. Councilman Van Grack.
I would just get just as you said, to the extent there can be a preference towards the loan, giving our fiscal responsibility, that'd be preference. But obviously, I'd yield to staff if you think it's necessary otherwise. But I agreed with what the mayor talked about with fiscal responsibility.
Thank you. Councilman Shaw.
I would just like to hear from staff, and also think about this being based on the need. And so, yeah, I would just like to hear back from staff. And just really quick, so I just wanted to confirm again. So if we, and it sounds like we're increasing the AMI. So for this specific program, I understand we can layer on, but for this specific program, it drops from 15, right?
Very likely.
Significantly.
Very
Okay.
likely, yeah.
So do you have like a
Well, that depends. If you're doing a 10% or you're doing a 25,000, I mean, that's the tooling that we talked about, right?
Okay, whenever you come back with more information, could you just include that number, like an estimate number?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And then just one other comment, if we do go with the grant, there's also the question of, are we doing 2 per year? Or it could be 20,000 a year, it could be 150,000 a year. We don't know, right? If 15 people come and say, I want to do all first-time buyer. So
Well, no, that couldn't happen, right? So there's still only so much funding we're going to put into this program. So whether we cap it at $25,000 per loan, once we hit our budget number, we're out of money for the program, right? We can either look to the HOF and potentially do a budget amendment at another time in the year, or we just close it and wait till the next fiscal year, and so folks can be prepared. Or if it's a fluctuating number based on your income and your actual purchase capacity, we can fix that. And so it floats a little bit, but the same thing is once we hit our budget number,
and this is just for the grant portion is what I'm talking
no,
about.
no, this
I'm
is the
talking
loan.
about just for the
I'm
grant.
sorry, no,
Just for the grants.
the grant portion would be based on eligible applicants.
Right, so it could be 20,000 a year if there's 2 people, or 150,000 if there's 15. Yay or nay?
With current budget constraints, we won't be able to serve 15 people, so it won't be 150,000.
Okay.
Right? Like that is the limiting factor at this point is if 100% of the people who apply are also first generation home buyers, then it would equate to the 100% of people, right? And so say we had lower down payment assistance amounts and we were only able to help 7 people, that we would then spend 70,000 extra in that grant component layered on top of the significant down payment assistance support that we would be providing in that scenario.
Okay, I'm just saying if for some reason we go with the grant program, maybe we put a budget for that so that it's defined. It's not just we don't know what it's going to be. Is it 20,000 or 50,000, whatever that is, but it's defined so we know what our budget is and we know that we can support excellent people through the grant, through the no interest loan program. We can get to more people that way. Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor. So refresh my memory. What is the total budget dollar figure that we're talking about using for the program? I think so.
I have an estimated program budget of about $626,000.
Now, does that include the $350,000 that is sitting there in the Sandy Springs and First National Bank accounts?
We are hoping.
So that does include it already?
Yes, so currently yes, my current funds that I would like to use for this is the $250,000 that we have set aside for the employee program. And then approximately, it's a little less, it's less than $350,000 because there's some current outstanding loans that HCI already has. But yes, then approximately the funding that they have remaining would then be poured into this program to help us get it off the ground, and then we would have additional support from the HOF.
So you were thinking, and I don't know, so I mean, I guess you're right, that there'd be no problem getting that money back or using it for this program. No hurdles, no red tape, I mean, nothing like that. So the 650 is firm rather than just a hope.
I don't want to pretend that there's no hurdles and red tape with trying to get this funding back. And not that they're being elusive in any way. They are, they would like to transfer the program to us. We want the program. We are working out the details on how to get that to us.
So you feel comfortable that by October, that it would be worked out and that we'll have access to the full 650 that we're talking about?
I do.
Okay.
Councilmember Larry.
I think it hit me. On the grants versus loans aspect discussion, possibly we could consider it using the way that tuition assistance is determined. Some people are ineligible for Pell Grants, so you're taking out more loans. It's based on household income, so there's that we could do. But something that the mayor said in particular struck me, and that is we might not be the right entity to do the layering, but we could help people to layer. So we won't necessarily have enough money so that somebody could layer from within the city's resources, but you could have access to one of the city resources and then maybe a navigator to say you are also eligible for this, this, and this from the state and from the county. That would then make up for it, because then it would be easier to budget as well, right? It relatively easier to do that, but I would definitely support that, and I think it's more realistic given kind of our fiscal constraints here. And again, like I just throw that out there for consideration, that loan versus grant might be in conjunction with accessing one of these assistance programs, and then it could be an income-based decision.
Where are you on this topic of loan versus grant?
So we're at the point where the only place where there would possibly be a grant is for the first generation home buyer. And we all agree, I think it's hard to get there, but I think we agree, like there's a limit. Like there is a budget for the amount of grants we can give in a given year. If that's the case, I'm fine with grants there.
Anyone else have any other comments? I think we are in good shape. Thank you for launching this program. I know our employees are waiting, so thank you for expediting, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of communications going out to get them ready, and I'm sure there's a list already waiting to be filled. Thank you very much. All right. We're now moving on to mock agenda. I think we had a chance to look at this today. Anyone else have comments? I know for 6 months, you're just mapping out some of the matters we talked about adding, and you'll get back to us on that. Old new business. I have one item. We passed the Rockville Town Center Master Plan. And I just wanted to see, I know Reddy has reached out to the small business property owners. I also thought, not small business, the property owners in Town Center. I also wanted to think about the nonprofit partners. So minority MHP, who owns Bell Grant, and HOC, Housing Opportunities Commission, owns 90 Monroe. 90 Monroe is currently used as storage for some of their maintenance, but it once was a 100-person affordable housing complex. So I just wanted to suggest that perhaps the city could send a letter to both MHP and HOC, notifying them of what's possible through our Rockville Town Center Master Plan, because I know some people had different thoughts on what was allowable, as well as encouraging them to support affordable housing, to move forward on some things to add more affordable housing. So I just wanted to see if that notification can come from the city. Have you, Jeff, do you know if the city has done that yet? Okay. Okay. Colleagues, would you support sending a letter to MHP and HOC to that effect? Okay. So can we make a motion? Councilmember Valeri?
Require a motion?
I got it, Mayor.
You sure?
Are you sure?
Okay. All right. So I have a question. Will you be capturing this in the minutes if we don't have a motion? You will capture it. Okay. All right. Sometimes motions are only captured.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. Anything else? Do we want to have a motion to adjourn? Who's ready? Councilmember Valeri.
I'm ready. Madam Mayor, I'd like to make the motion to adjourn.
Who seconds? Councilmember Jackson seconds. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Excellent. We are just under 10 minutes over. Thank you very much for watching, everyone.